Warrior Lore. Chapter 449. It was a sea of people. The sound waves converged and soared into the sky, resounding throughout the sky. Under the influence of this boiling atmosphere, Du Xiaofu's heart began to heat up. He was somewhat looking forward to the beginning of the duel between the two empires' peak younger generation. Du Xiaofu's gaze swept across the surroundings. Then, he looked towards the place mentioned by the North vanquishing prince. There were dozens of figures standing there. In front of them sat a dozen people. Faintly, the aura emitted from them was extremely valiant. It's him. When Du Xiaofu's gaze landed on a young man sitting in the middle of the crowd, he suddenly raised his eyebrows. Du Xiaofu recognized the young man at a glance. He was the Sky Snake sect's Lu Kuan, whom he had met and fought with in the Savage Beast Mountain range. Unexpectedly, there was a feeling of enemies meeting on a narrow road. He did not expect to meet Lu Kuan here. A rather sinister and cold gaze swept across from Lu Kuan's slender single eyelids and firmly landed on Du Xiaofu's body. When their eyes met, both of them were slightly stunned. Then, Du Xiaofu raised his eyebrows. That sinister gaze was suffused with a sneer, becoming even more sinister. Buzz. At this moment, a melodious and crisp sound of a bell resounded from the city tower. At the same time, the clamorous screams from the square below that soared into the sky immediately quieted down. As the sound of the bell fell, the North vanquishing prince, who was sitting in the center of the city wall, stood up and swept his gaze across the square below. At this moment, countless gazes from both inside and outside the square fell on this old man who had an extremely high reputation in the empire. The North vanquishing prince's reputation was definitely higher than the new protector king's. The younger generation of the Stone Dragon Empire and the Tianhu Empire will be dueling. Each side will send 5 people to fight. The loser will retreat, and the winner will continue until one side is completely defeated. As the representative of the Stone Dragon Empire, I hereby announce the start of the duel. At the same time, as the North vanquishing prince's voice was heard, an old man with long black hair stood up from the Tianhu Empire's formation not far away. He looked around and said loudly, "In this duel, those who do not surrender will live and die in the hands of fate. The final winner will obtain 10 prefectures from the other empire." As the representative of the Tianhu Empire, I now announce the start of the duel. As the two waves of sound reverberated in the air one after another, the sound waves overlapped, allowing the countless onlookers in the square to hear them clearly. Boom! At the same time, all around the square, there was a huge uproar. Just as the North vanquishing prince and the black-haired old man finished speaking, a figure flashed out from the Tianhu Empire's formation. Qi, that body directly rose from the edge of the city tower. With a leap, it appeared just like an eagle pouncing on its prey. It landed in the middle of the square below in front of quite a number of surprised gazes. Qi, just as the body was about to land, a surge of Xian Qi suddenly surged out from the body. Then, the body rotated 720 degrees in the air and slowly landed in the middle of the square. The person who landed was a young man in his early 20s. His skin was fair, and his temperament was extraordinary. His facial features were delicate with a touch of handsomeness. However, his eyes flashed with a sharp light. Then, he looked at the Stone Dragon Empire's city tower and said indifferently, "Tianhu Empire's Fu Junyi, please advise me. I'll go and meet him first." On the city tower, Gu Xinyan's eyes flashed as her voice fell. She flicked her sleeves slightly, and her graceful body suddenly flew into the air. Then, under the gazes of everyone present, she was like a fallen leaf in the wind. Gently and gracefully, she fluttered in the air and slid down gracefully. The figure's red dress was dazzling, and her posture was graceful. Her moving figure and temperament were untainted by the mortal world. Immediately, there were many cheers and shouts from the crowd below. Even on the city wall, there were many young men and women who were cheering for Gu Xinyan's performance. Some of the elders secretly nodded their heads. On the square, 2 figures looked at each other. Looking at Gu Xinyan, who was slowly descending, Fu Junyi's face flashed with a faint smile. Suddenly, the Xian Qi around his body surged, and a faint light spread out from his eyes. Gu Xinyan's beautiful face slightly moved, as if she felt something. Then, she focused and her xian qi surged, and the surrounding atmosphere suddenly became tense. As the two stood, everyone's gazes were fixed on them. The atmosphere was tense and gradually heated up. The long-awaited battle between the two empires' peak younger generation was finally about to begin. Chi-Chi, Gu Xinyan moved. In her beautiful eyes, light bloomed. The hand seals in her hands began to change and condense. As the hand seals changed, the energy of heaven and earth suddenly fluctuated rapidly from the surrounding air. You want to arrange a charm array? It's not that easy. Fu Junyi shouted coldly. The corner of his mouth twitched slightly. His clothes fluttered, and his figure swept out like a ghost. He quickly appeared in front of Gu Xinyan. With a wave of his hand, runes surged, and xian qi spread out in all directions, covering the sky. Like a violent flood, it swept towards Gu Xinyan, preventing her from arranging the charm array. Gu Xinyan's beautiful face slightly changed. The mighty energy was crushed. The opponent's speed was amazing. She had to give up on arranging the charm array, and her figure quickly avoided the attack. At the same time, Gu Xinyan's body was wrapped in a xian qi light shield. She waved her delicate hand and turned it into a palm print. Vast pressure spread out and swept towards Fu Junyi. Fu Junyi's eyes were sharp. His figure was like lightning, and he leaned back at a 45-degree angle. Just as he avoided Gu Xinyan's attack, he clenched his hand into a fist. Wrapped in a mysterious talisman, he swept it towards Gu Xinyan's shoulder and back. In a short time, the two of them had caused an uproar in the square. Their figures intertwined like lightning, and both were as fast as lightning. Their attacks crisscrossed, and they rarely collided. However, it was often this kind of fight that was more dangerous. Bang, bang, bang. Once the two of them collided head-on, their powerful xian qi would shake the sky and shatter the runes. Low muffled sounds could be heard from time to time. There was no doubt that the two of them were extraordinary. Neither of them was weak. They were one of the top existences among their peers. Many of the old people on the city tower side and were shocked. Gu Xinyan knew her advantage, so she had been seizing the opportunity to arrange the charm array. She wanted to display the strength of a talisman and martial artist. However, Fu Junyi was not stupid. He was extremely smart, and he knew the principle of fighting in one go. He did not allow Gu Xinyan to arrange the charm array. His continuous attacks were launched, and he tightly entangled Gu Xinyan. Gu Xinyan's graceful figure fluttered in the air. Under the fierce attacks of her opponent, she did not change her expression or panic. This kind of exciting fight was evenly matched. The surrounding onlookers were unable to take their eyes off her. Occasionally, there would be onlookers cheering for Gu Xinyan. Their voices were monstrous. Martial Marquis Peak Profound Realm. It seems that she has improved a lot in the heavenly martial seal realm. Du Xiaofu looked at the fight in the square, and he was quite moved. Compared to the heavenly martial assembly, Gu Xinyan had improved a lot. However, watching Fu Junyi made Du Xiaofu frown. Although Fu Junyi had been continuously attacking, he had not used his full strength. It was enough to see that there was something else nearby. He might have left something behind. What do you think of the fight between the two of them? Unknowingly, Guo Xiaofeng, Ghost Child, and Wu Kei were standing behind Du Xiaofu's seat. I can't see it. The two of them have not used their full strength. However, if Gu Xinyan does not have time to arrange the charm array, she will be suppressed. Du Xiaofu hesitated for a moment, and then replied to the three people behind him. Swish! As Du Xiaofu's voice fell, Gu Xinyan's delicate body under her red clothes was like a willow tree. Her delicate hands moved slightly, and a cloud of runes appeared in front of her. The cloud of runes swept across the sky, and runes fluctuated in the sky. Under the brilliance, it contained a pressure that could destroy everything. Flowing cloud sky dance. Gu Xinyan shouted. Countless runes surged out of her sleeves, and like a cocoon of light, it suppressed and enveloped Fu Junyi. Fu Junyi's expression changed slightly. His hand seals changed rapidly and turned into runes that filled the sky. In the end, they condensed into a rune energy ribbon, which stirred up the surrounding air waves and directly collided with the cloud of runes that filled the sky. Swish! There was no loud explosion, and only a terrifying surge of energy swept out, causing the space to tremble. Then, under many shocked gazes, the cloud of runes that filled the sky locked onto Fu Junyi and tightly wrapped around him. Jade's spirit palm. Her figure was graceful and tender, and her long black hair was draped over her waist. At this moment, a strange energy fluctuation fluttered behind her head. Gu Xinyan's beautiful figure appeared in front of Fu Junyi. Her delicate hand fiercely shot out a palm print that crushed the sky. Drought palm. The runes on his body soared into the sky. Fu Junyi used all his strength to break free from Gu Xinyan's cloud of runes. In a panic, his palm print collided with Gu Xinyan's. In an instant, the terrifying runes dazzled, and a resplendent rune light burst out. Swish! Gu Xinyan's delicate body was directly pushed back, but she stabilized her body after a few steps. Swish! But at this moment, Fu Junyi's body was directly sent flying, and he stabilized his body after flying for dozens of meters. A trace of blood flowed out from the corner of his mouth. It's time for the 6th watch, and there will be an update, but it will be a little late. Little you will go and have a meal first, and then continue writing. Chapter 450. However, Fu Junyi's body was sent flying. He only stabilized his body after flying for dozens of meters. A trace of blood flowed out from the corner of his mouth. At this moment, Gu Xinyan was looking at Fu Junyi, who seemed to have suffered a loss after being forced back. However, there was not much fluctuation in her beautiful eyes. Her hands began to rapidly form seals. One after another, the energy of heaven and earth rapidly fluctuated in the air. Her long black hair danced behind her head along with the energy fluctuations. This scene was fierce and violent, yet beautiful like a fairy that had walked out of a painting. Fu Junyi steadied his body in the air and looked at Gu Xinyan, who was rapidly forming hand seals. His pale face suddenly flashed with some strange fluctuations. He stamped his foot on the void and his figure shot out like lightning towards Gu Xinyan. At this moment, Gu Xinyan's last seal was finally formed. On her delicate palm, a total of 18 formation flags were formed. Inside the formation flags, there was a shocking fluctuation. At this moment, all the energy in Gu Xinyan's body seemed to have been poured into the 18 formation flags. Her delicate face turned as pale as ash. A person who cultivates both talisman Taoism and martial arts. If they can master both, they will be extremely terrifying. Someone in the crowd exclaimed. A 5-star mysterious level talisman master. Du Xiaofu was moved. It seemed that Gu Xinyan had not only made a breakthrough in martial arts within the heavenly martial talisman realm for half a year, but she had also made another breakthrough in talisman master. From the aura that was spreading out from Gu Xinyan's body, Gu Xinyan was not far from the 5-star talisman master nirvana realm in terms of talisman master cultivation. In the heavenly martial talisman realm for 5 years, Gu Xinyan had made breakthroughs in both talisman Taoism and martial arts. More importantly, she had made progress in her comprehension, which was already extraordinary. In a short moment, Fu Junyi's figure appeared in front of Gu Xinyan. 4 directions mountain ceiling formation. Gu Xinyan didn't waste any time. She waved her hand and set up a charm array. 18 formation flags immediately flew into the air and wrapped around the front with lightning speed and trajectory. They turned into dazzling rune light pillars and disappeared, wrapping around Fu Junyi. Rumble. In an instant, dazzling runes spread across the sky, and a powerful rune array appeared in midair. Endless energy runes seemed to distort the space, and finally, they faintly turned into the shadow of an ancient, huge mountain. Boom! The mountain descended from the sky, its entire body rippling with mysterious talisman markings. An ancient aura suffused the air, as if a divine stone had descended from the heavens to suppress the sky. A 5-star mysterious charm array. If Fu Junyi from the Tianhu Empire tried to break it by force, he would not be able to do so unless he was at the peak of the martial lord realm. Is that guy from the Tianhu Empire going to lose? Does the Tianhu Empire really think they can compare to the Stone Dragon Empire? Seeing that Fu Junyi from the Tianhu Empire was wrapped in Gu Xinyan's charm array, everyone was shocked. They waited with bated breath. It seemed that the guy from the Tianhu Empire was going to lose. Something doesn't seem right. At this moment, Du Xiaofu's eyes were fixed on the huge mountain charm array in front of him. Within the terrifying ancient aura, there were some ripples of worry. Not good. In an instant, under Du Xiaofu's worried gaze, a flowing figure rushed out from the huge mountain charm array. It was like a flash of lightning, and suddenly appeared in front of the ashen-faced Gu Xinyan. Crash! Just as the lightning-like figure rushed out, the huge mountain charm array suddenly shattered into dazzling runes that filled the sky. An attack as powerful as thunder ruthlessly struck in front of Gu Xinyan and heavily swept down. Bang! With a dull thud, Gu Xinyan spat out a mouthful of fresh blood. Her delicate body flew down in a straight line and landed heavily on the square on the ground. How did this happen? How did the guy from the Tianhu Empire break the charm array? What's going on? This scene was too unexpected. Seeing Gu Xinyan being blasted down from midair, the surrounding spectators had yet to recover from their shock. Within the city walls, the North vanquishing prince, the protector king, and other experts looked at Fu Junyi, who was flying low in the sky. Within the Tianhu Empire's lineup, many people had smiles on their faces. I didn't expect him to hide so well. This guy hid too well. He's actually a 5-star spiritual talisman master at the Nirvana realm. At this moment, there was an uproar on the city tower. Many people, including Du Xiaofu, looked at Fu Junyi in shock. At this moment, the aura around Fu Junyi's body was no longer that of a martial lord, but a 5-star Nirvana realm spiritual talisman master. He was also a rarely seen dual cultivator of the martial path and talisman path. In terms of the cultivation of a spiritual talisman master, he had already reached the 5-star Nirvana realm. Martial Dao and talisman master cultivation. I know it too. My strongest strength isn't martial Dao, but talisman Dao and charm arrays. You shouldn't have set up a charm array in front of me. In midair, Fu Junyi looked down at Gu Xinyan, who had stood up. She was already drenched in blood, and her aura was weak. Everything was going according to his plan. With a faint, arrogant smile, he said, I know you like the back of my hand. Second on the martial ranking of Tianwu Academy, the peak of the younger generation of the Gu clan. Yet, you know nothing about me. You've lost. I've lost. On Gu Xinyan's delicate face, there was a trace of sadness in her beautiful eyes. Another mouthful of blood flowed down from the corner of her mouth. In the first round, Fu Junyi from the Tianhu Empire wins. He can choose to stay or leave. The Stone Dragon Empire can send a second person. On the city tower, an expert from the Stone Dragon Empire announced the result of the competition. Although his voice was clear, everyone could hear that there was a trace of helplessness in it. The Stone Dragon Empire had lost in the first round on their home ground. The eyes of the spectators dimmed as they had suffered a blow. Stone Dragon Empire's general. As the voice from the city tower faded, a majestic figure suddenly flew down from the city wall. The general's figure stepped on the sky, and an aura that could suppress mountains and rivers spread out from his body. He looked at Fu Junyi, who was in midair, and said, Send someone else. You might be able to resist me for a while when you're at your peak, but you're no match for me now. General Buddy in mountain and river, you're quite arrogant. If you're capable, you'll have to defeat me first. Fu Junyi sneered. The aura around him fluctuated, and hand seals were formed. You want to set up a talisman formation too? The general raised his eyebrows. He took a step forward and appeared in front of Fu Junyi in an instant, as if he had traversed through space. The mysterious aura around him surged wildly along with the talisman scripts, enveloping the entire sky. A terrifying aura was released without reservation, causing the entire space to tremble. A layer of strange mist shrouded the area, and the talisman scripts shone dazzlingly. Martial Lord Peak of the Nirvana Realm. The general has reached the Martial Lord Peak of the Nirvana Realm. Looking at the general releasing his aura without reservation, Guo Xiaofeng, Wu Kei, Ghost Child, and many others were moved. At this moment, the aura that the general was releasing was at the Martial Lord Peak of the Nirvana Realm. As expected of the most outstanding young man in the general family, his talent is extraordinary. It should be the great benefits he obtained in the heavenly martial talisman realm. An extra 4.5 years is no small matter. Looking at the martial lord peak of the Nirvana realm that the general was currently displaying, many elders on the city tower were in awe and shock. Everything took a long time to describe, but it happened as fast as lightning. The general's stalwart figure stepped on the air, and his aura seemed to be entrenched in the sky, suppressing the mountains and rivers. Waves of heaven and earth energy gathered for no reason, as if they were gathering to form an energy storm in front of him. In the next second, a palm print was formed in the center of his palm. The surrounding energy storm was instantly sucked into the palm print. The space around the palm print was distorted, and a strange fluctuation appeared out of nowhere. It was like a suppressed volcano that was about to erupt. The terrifying palm print was pushed out toward Fu Junyi, who was about to condense a talisman formation. The terrifying energy was released, and wherever it passed by, the resplendent talisman scripts that covered the sky and earth cut through the space like lightning with an extremely sharp, ear-piercing sound. Mountain seal, suppress. The general shouted softly. The palm print swept out with a spatial storm. The air billows whistled and enveloped Fu Junyi. Martial Lord Peak of the Nirvana realm. How can he be so strong? Fu Junyi finally sensed the strength of the general. His expression changed in an instant. Faintly, his gaze became serious, and he recovered from his shock. The talisman formation was not enough to condense smoothly. He changed his hand seal, and the mysterious patterns on the talisman in front of him surged into the sky. The spiritual stove and talisman cauldron instantly condensed in front of him. Along with a blazing aura that spread out, a terrifying aura swept out like a storm. As a spiritual talisman master, the spiritual stove and talisman cauldron were equivalent to the spirit vein of a martial arts practitioner. It was not even below the spirit vein of a martial arts practitioner. However, once the spiritual stove and talisman cauldron of a spiritual talisman master was damaged, the consequences would be much more severe than the spirit vein of a martial arts practitioner. Therefore, spiritual talisman masters would definitely not use the spiritual stove and talisman cauldron so easily. However, facing the general who was at the martial lord peak of the Nirvana realm, and with such a terrifying attack, Fu Junyi seemed to have no other choice. Due to his carelessness and the fact that he had consumed too much energy just now, he could only activate the spiritual stove and talisman cauldron. Chapter 451. Bang! The mysterious patterns on the cauldron were vast and boundless. Blazing flames leaped from the cauldron and soared into the sky. Immediately, in front of Fu Junyi, it blocked the general's lofty mountain seal. The mysterious patterns on the cauldron blossomed in the sky. Such a collision caused the air to tremble loudly. The energy was like a stormy sea, causing countless gazes to nervously look at each other. Walala! But this stalemate only lasted for 4 or 5 breaths of time. Although those spiritual stoves and talisman cauldrons were terrifying, under the suppressive might of the general's mountain-like palm, they were crushed to pieces by the surging talisman power, turning into a large expanse of talisman fragments. Pucci, Fu Junyi opened his mouth and spat out a mouthful of blood. His body immediately staggered back. The gorgeous and berserk energy in the air gradually disappeared, revealing the general and Fu Junyi's bodies. Does Fu Junyi still have the strength to fight? All the spectators' gazes were tightly fixed on the two people in the air. Their eyes were trembling. The previous confrontation was only a single move, but it was even more terrifying than the previous confrontation between Gu Xinyan and Fu Junyi. High up in the air, Fu Junyi looked at the general, wiping the blood from the corner of his mouth. His eyes were filled with coldness. Do you still want to continue? The general stepped on the air with a vigorous aura. At this moment, the cheers of many girls could be heard from all around. Fu Junyi looked at the general. His face was deathly pale, and his aura was dispirited. The consequences of his cauldron being destroyed were not light. The corners of his mouth curved into a smile, and he said indifferently, "No need. Naturally, there will be someone to deal with you." Chi. As his voice fell, Fu Junyi leapt up and left. The general of the Stone Dragon Empire wins. You can choose to stay or leave. The Tianhu Empire can send a second person. On the city gate tower, the powerhouse who had just announced Gu Xinyan's defeat immediately announced the result of the battle. This time, his voice rolled and resounded in all directions. Good job, General. Gu Xinyan's defeat not long ago had caused many of the spectators to look gloomy. They had all suffered a great blow. At this moment, hearing the announcement, they immediately burst into cheers. Tianhu Empire, Ming Jia. A young man who was about the same age as the general descended from the Tianhu Empire's formation. This young man's eyes were glowing. His well-built body complemented the general's tall and straight figure. At this moment, a majestic ripple spread from his body, causing the surrounding onlookers to faintly feel a chill. The strength of this youth called Ming Jia was definitely much stronger than Fu Junyi's from before. Do it. The general took a deep breath and exhaled a mouthful of air. His eyes immediately emitted a dazzling light. Haha, General Buddy in Shanha. Martial arts and martial arts dual cultivation. Not bad. Just as the general's eyes flickered with a dazzling radiance, a wave of aura swept out from Ming Jia's body like a storm. The terrifying aura spread, and it was obvious that he had reached the peak of the martial marquee nirvana realm. The corner of his mouth curled into an indifferent smile as he said to the general, however, today, I still have to tell you that you will definitely lose in front of me. The general raised his head slightly and looked at Ming Jia of the Tianhu Empire before him. He said plainly, You don't seem to be qualified. Following the general's indifferent yet arrogant words, the entire space seemed to freeze all of a sudden. The two of them faced each other in midair and looked at each other from afar. Then, their auras surged. Boom! Almost at the same time, the profound qi in their bodies surged and wrapped around each other. The profound qi in their bodies exploded without holding back. Their long robes fluttered in the wind and mysterious runes faintly flowed on the surface of their bodies. Ayo! Roar! The two of them seemed to have reached some kind of tacit understanding. Before they even started fighting, they communicated with their martial veins at almost the same time and activated their vein spirits. The general's vein spirit was a huge black ape that was as black as ink. Its aura was terrifying and could suppress mountains and rivers. The vein spirit of Ming Jia of the Tianhu Empire was a ferocious, strange beast that was the size of a bull. It had the head of a dragon and the tail of a tiger. Its aura was extremely powerful and was not any weaker than the general's black ape vein spirit. Bang bang. The two of them covered their vein spirits and seemed to have merged into one. They transformed into demonic beasts and instantly leapt into the air. Runes filled the sky, and they started to fight. The ferocious strange beast was swift and fierce. Its claws were like knives, and it wanted to cut through the space between heaven and earth. Its aura spread, and it was extremely terrifying. The black ape shadow roared, and its entire body glowed with black light. Its aura surged and suppressed the mountains and rivers. The two of them immediately activated their vein spirits to fight. This caused the surrounding people to be extremely shocked, and they could not take their eyes off the fight. The difference in their cultivation levels is incomparable. They both know that if they want to determine the victor, they have to give it their all. Du Xiaofu looked in front of him and was very moved by the strength of the two of them, especially when facing Ming Jia of the Tianhu Empire. Du Xiaofu sighed in his heart. An empire was nothing in the entire Central Plains. However, within an empire, there were many people of the same generation who were comparable to generals. The few youths from the Tianhu Empire who had yet to make a move were definitely stronger. From this, it seemed that in the entire central continent, how strong were the top youths of the younger generation. Everyone's eyes were fixed on the fight. The strange beast vein spirit phantoms and the black ape vein spirit phantoms continuously collided in mid-air. Runes soared into the sky, and they both had a powerful aura. Rumble. Every time they collided, there would be a burst of light. Sparks would fly in all directions, and divine light would surge. However, the two of them seemed to be unable to determine the victor. Roar. After being unable to fight for a long time, the strange beast vein spirit phantoms became angry. It spat out runes from its mouth, and its body continued to expand. The runes shone brightly, and it swept towards the black ape with all its might. The vast and mighty energy surged in the sky as if it was going to shatter space. The surrounding spectators felt their hair stand on end. Ayo! The black ape roared in anger, and its body also expanded. It was like a black demon god standing in the mortal world. Its terrifying aura was violent and torrential, causing people to tremble in fear. The collision of the two human vein spirits caused the space to rumble and the square below to tremble. Walala! The ground cracked, sand and stones flew, and a storm swept across the sky like a tornado. Their auras aren't weak. Du Shaoqing sat on the chair and said with interest. Not far away, the North Vanquishing Prince and the Protector King seemed to have heard Du Shaoqing's words. They looked at Du Shaoqing with a puzzled expression. I'm afraid it will be difficult to determine the victor. Du Xiaoyao stood on Du Shaoqing's shoulder. Her pale golden spirit eyes flickered. At this moment, she was also paying close attention to the battle in the field. Bang, bang, bang. After a while, the two vein spirits continued to collide. Divine light shot out in all directions and runes shone. The huge force shook the space violently and the ground cracked. Then, both vein spirit phantoms were damaged. They actually cracked in the violent confrontation again and again. No one had the upper hand. Uft! Both of them spurted out blood and their bodies fell from the sky at the same time. The ground of the square shook and the mountains shook. As blood dripped, their auras were weak and their faces were pale. In the end, they did not have the strength to continue fighting. This scene also made the North Vanquishing Prince and the Protector King, as well as the black-haired old man and the white-haired old man from the Tianhu Empire, move. After a discussion, the two of them tied for this round. Good job, General. Around the square, as the spectators watched the general being helped up, a wave of cheers erupted from the surrounding spectators. Although the general did not win, he defeated one opponent and maintained a tie for the second round. The ferocious battle just now was unforgettable. Qi. In the Tianhu Empire, after the tie between the general and Ming Jia, another young man flew out and landed lightly on the square. Following the appearance of this young man, some of the women in the crowd were stunned. This young man's facial features were as clear as a sculpture. His thick eyebrows were slightly raised, and under his long and slightly curled eyelashes, there was a pair of starry eyes. When he looked at people, he seemed to be full of affection. His skin was fair, his nose was handsome, and his lips were pink like rose petals. It was as if his smile was rippling with the arc of a smile that dazzled thousands of women. What a handsome man! So handsome. Although they knew that he was from the Tianhu Empire, there were still many women in the square who looked at him in a daze. In the Stone Dragon Empire, many people's eyes fell on the Du family. Under the gazes of many people, Dewey slowly walked to the edge of the city tower. His white robe and black hair were not tied up. In contrast to his tall and slender figure, he moved the people who looked at him. It was unknown whether it was intentional or not, but after glancing at Du Xiaofu, who was sitting not far away, a slight chill flashed past his eyes. Then, he jumped and landed on the square. Boom! As Dewey landed, an invisible air wave rippled out, causing the ground to tremble slightly. Looking at the handsome man in front of him, a lightning-like glint flashed in the depths of his eyes, revealing an arrogant expression. Dewey from the Du family is going to fight. As Dewey stepped onto the square, many people looked at him with complicated expressions. After all, Dewey had already fought 2 days ago, but the outcome was a little miserable. Dewey stepped onto the square. Within the Du family, many people were watching him closely. Many of the elders looked nervous. 8 o'clock in the morning. It's 4:30 a.m. I'm sorry that everyone only finished now. I'm so tired. Xiao, can't take it anymore. He's going to sleep. I beg for flowers, recommendation tickets, coffee, care, love. Chapter 452. Stone Dragon Empire, Dewey of the Du family. Dewey stepped onto the stage and looked at the handsome man in front of him. Silver snake-like lightning spread in his eyes, appearing extremely frightening. Tianhu Empire, Qin Zijiang. The handsome man raised his head slightly, looking at Dewey with eyes full of affection. With a faint smile, he opened his mouth and softly said, "You are still not strong enough." Calling Du Chang of your Du family is more appropriate. You should admit defeat yourself so as not to embarrass yourself later. Hearing this, Du Yi's expression became extremely ugly at this moment as he looked at Qin Zijiang, who was still standing casually in front of him. However, a majestic aura that could not be underestimated was faintly spreading out from her. 2 days ago, he had been ignored by Du Xiaofu. Today, Qin Zijiang actually did not place him in her eyes. What, are you not convinced? I feel that you are truly no match for me. Call Du Chang of your Du family. Just as Du Yi's expression turned ugly, the corners of Qin Zijiang's mouth curled into a faint smile. Like adding fuel to the fire, she did not place Du Yi in her eyes at all. In response to Qin Zijiang's words that were like adding fuel to the fire, the ugly expression on Du Yi's face gradually turned sinister. A cold glint flashed in his silver snake-like eyes as a majestic aura slowly spread around his body. Behind him, the wind and clouds surged as layer after layer of dark clouds gathered out of nowhere. Faintly, lightning flashed and thunder rumbled, causing one's heart to tremble. Don't be arrogant in front of me. Big brother doesn't even need to act to take care of you. I am enough. Du Yi sneered. With a wave of his hand, light flashed all over his body, following which, lightning started to flash from within his body. With a stomp on the ground, his figure shot into the air, almost connecting with the lightning and the dark clouds behind him. Lightning flashed and thunder rumbled, causing the air to tremble. His aura was terrifying. Du family's lightning rune mysteries. Qin Zijiang smiled faintly as she gazed at Du Yi, who was like lightning flashing and thunder rumbling in the sky. She was rather interested. After which, a brilliant light rippled within her affectionate eyes. Her body transformed into an afterimage. When she appeared again, she had already stepped into the air and appeared in front of Du Yi. It's just the Qin family of the Tianhu Empire, a family that has been around for less than 100 years. How can it compare to my Du family? Today, I will tell you that you don't have the right to be arrogant in front of me. In midair, Du Yi let out a cold shout as he stared straight at Qin Zijiang. The brilliance in his eyes was like the fluctuation of lightning. Waves of vast and mighty aura swept across the sky from his body, channeling the energy of heaven and earth. He no longer held back the aura of a martial lord at the peak of the Nirvana realm. A terrifying aura spread across this part of heaven and earth. Under the pressure of the aura of lightning and thunder, it caused the celestial chi in the surrounding spectators below to stagnate and solidify. Their bodies trembled, and their souls throbbed. Martial Lord Realm, Nirvana Realm, Du Yi from the Du family is indeed extraordinary. When they saw the terrifying aura that Du Yi had caused, many old men on the city gate tower nodded their heads and secretly sighed. The various great king manors and aristocrats sighed endlessly, causing the members of the Du family to secretly feel a little proud. Although Du Yi had made a fool of himself 2 days ago, they could not deny that Du Yi was indeed one of the best amongst the younger generation. You don't seem weak. I heard that not long ago, you were heavily injured by someone with a simple move. Looks like your strength seems to be strong on the outside but weak on the inside. You shouldn't be able to withstand a single blow. Looking at the commotion caused by Du Yi, who was surging with wind and clouds in the sky, Qin Zijiang still smiled faintly. Bastard! Qin Zijiang's words finally caused Du Yi to explode. What happened 2 days ago was the deepest wound in his heart. It was a wound that could not be healed. At this moment, Qin Zijiang had once again opened up the wound in the bottom of his heart in front of the entire imperial capital. One could imagine the anger in his heart. Sizzle! The hand seals in Du Yi's hands changed. The wind and clouds surged in the sky behind him, and the dark clouds moved. With a wave of his hand, silver snake-like lightning was born on his palm. The mysterious runes on the talisman fluctuated, and in the end, it seemed to have transformed into a dragon that was wrapped in lightning. Roar! The dragon roared, and it was like a sudden clap of thunder rumbling in the sky. Lightning raged, and its aura could be said to be destructive. This was the ultimate move that Du Yi had comprehended, lightning symbol dragon transformation. 2 days ago, because his comprehension of it was still lacking, he wanted to save this ultimate move to show off in the current country war. Therefore, he did not use it. Over the past 2 days, under the guidance of the old man from the Dew family, Dewey had further comprehended the lightning symbol dragon transformation. Now that he was furious, he naturally activated it, and wanted to teach his opponent a lesson with a single move. Lightning symbol dragon transformation. Roar. Dewey activated the lightning dragon, and the lightning dragon roared like thunder. Wherever it passed, the space was distorted. Silver snakes flickered and wreaked havoc in the sky. Accompanied by a vast destructive aura, a domineering energy poured down like an ocean, directly suppressing Qin Zijiang. What a terrifying Dewey! He is indeed someone from the Dew family. At this moment, in the face of Du Yi's strength, many old men on the city tower exclaimed in admiration. Within the Tianhu Empire, there were people who were moved. In midair, Qin Zijiang looked at the lightning dragon wreaking havoc, but she did not have any intention of dodging. Suddenly, mysterious runes surrounded Qin Zijiang's body and shot into the sky. In her faint eyes, there were dazzling mysterious runes flickering, and her aura seemed to be able to look down on all directions. Gee! Suddenly, mysterious runes spread out from Qin Zijiang's arms, and then turned into a pair of wings that were several feet wide. Her entire body was shining with golden light, and the runes flickered. It was as if a golden gale had formed in the sky, and it was like a sharp blade, cutting through the space. Qin Zijiang exploded with power. In the time it took for a spark to fly off a piece of flint, instead of retreating, she leaped into the air and flapped her right wing. Clanging sounds rang out incessantly from the golden wing, and her right wing seemed to suddenly expand, transforming into a gigantic golden wing that swept through the air. On the golden wing, rays of golden misty light shot out one after another, layer after layer, and turned into a storm that swept across the sky. It carried traces of the fluctuations of the stars, and it violently collided with the lightning dragon. Instantly, lightning wreaked havoc in the sky, and golden light shot into the sky. Walala! Instantly, the entire square was in an uproar. Bang, 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 bang. In the terrifying explosion of energy, the surrounding sky and earth darkened, and the earth trembled as if there was a catastrophe. The ground in the square cracked and exploded continuously. The terrifying scene made countless eyes glaze over, and their hearts trembled with fear. Whoosh! In midair, under countless shocked gazes, Qin Zijiang's wings, which were wrapped in golden light, shattered the terrifying lightning dragon after a few breaths of stalemate. Complete Martial Lord Realm. Qin Zijiang is in the complete Martial Lord Realm. At this moment, someone finally discovered Qin Zijiang's true cultivation level. Complete Martial Lord Realm, one level higher than Du Yi's Martial Lord Realm Nirvana Realm. It seemed like there was only one level of difference, but at the Martial Lord Realm, the difference between one level was like a huge chasm. For ordinary people, it was difficult to cross. Moreover, these two people were both people with terrifying talents. One level of difference was one level. Poochie. In an instant, Dewey spat out a mouthful of blood. His body trembled violently, and his eyes were filled with shock and fear. His hand seals were condensed, as if he was trying to communicate with his martial vein and activate his vein spirit. I told you, you can't even withstand a single blow. Qin Zijiang appeared in front of Du Yi. Her eyes were filled with mysterious runes, and her left wing fell at the same time. Accompanied by the pressure of the runes, her aura looked disdainfully in all directions. With a flap of her wing, she pounced and suppressed Du Yi. Whoosh! Du Yi was unable to resist and could not take out the time to activate his vein spirit. His body was directly swept by Qin Zijiang and violently swept down from midair. Like an impact cannon, he fell to the square below, accompanied by a large spray of blood. Bang, bang, bang. The ground trembled violently, and the earth shook. A large area of the hard square exploded, and Du Yi's body was directly inserted into the broken ground. Without a doubt, Du Yi was defeated. Defeated miserably, and not just miserably. On the city gate tower, everyone's eyes were trembling, and their complexions were not too good. Especially those from the Dew household, their gazes could only be described as ugly. After that, Many of the Du household's gazes turned to Du Xiaofu. In their hearts, if Du Xiaofu had not seriously injured Dewey 2 days ago, Dewey would not have lost so miserably today. Although Dewey seemed to be fine, some of the elders of the Du family were very clear that Dewey had spent a lot of effort and a lot of the Du household's terrifying resources. In 2 days, Dewey was fine, but he had only recovered about 70%, and all of this was caused by Du Xiaofu. I didn't expect Dewey to lose so miserably, Ghost Child sighed. Although he did not like Dewey, he also hoped that Dewey would win from the standpoint of the Stone Dragon Empire. However, the current outcome was somewhat unacceptable to them. Qin Zijiang's wings are very strange. It doesn't look like an ordinary item. Wu Kei frowned, and her expression was rather gloomy. If the news I heard in the past is correct, Qin Zijiang's wings should have come from a golden-winged heavenly goose at the peak of the Beast King realm. It is said that the Qin family of the Tianhu Empire accidentally obtained the skeleton of a golden-winged heavenly goose. In the end, by chance, they invited a powerful talisman master to refine the golden-winged heavenly goose's wings onto Qin Zijiang's arms. Guo Xiaofeng softly said to everyone. For this, Qin Zijiang narrowly escaped death, but in the end, she miraculously survived. From then on, she became the most dazzling member of the Qin family's younger generation. Last night, I updated until the wee hours of the morning. When I woke up today, it was already afternoon. Xiaoyu continues to write, and thanks everyone for your support. Chapter 453. The golden-feathered heavenly goose is a demonic beast on the heavenly beast ranking. It's not weak. Du Xiaofu looked at Qin Zijiang in the sky. Her arms had transformed into the wings of the golden-feathered heavenly goose. Golden talisman patterns spread across her body. Her aura seemed to have some faint bloodline connection with the golden-winged Great Pong. Tianhu Empire, Qin Zijiang wins. On the city gate tower, the Great Han expert saw that Dewey had not gotten up for a long time and had no choice but to announce the result of the battle. Dewey had lost, and lost miserably. Following the announcement of the result, everyone sighed and sighed. There were also members of the Du family who immediately went to help Dewey up. In the air, Qin Zijiang flapped her wings slightly. She looked at the Stone Dragon Empire's lineup on the city gate tower and said softly with some arrogance, "Who's next from the Stone Dragon Empire? Come. I'll go." In the front row of the city gate tower, Chang Xingnan stood up. Her clothes accentuated her slender legs and slim waist. There was a hint of coolness in her elegant temperament. She tapped the ground with the tip of her foot and immediately swept across the sky. TSK, TSK. In a short moment, a graceful figure swept across the sky. Chang Xingnan stood proudly in the air. Her slender body was like a proud snow lotus. She looked at Qin Zijiang and opened her red lips slightly. Her voice rang out, "Stone Dragon Empire, Changshan." So it's the first princess, the proud daughter of the Divine Light Court. It's a pity that although the first princess's ranking is not low in the Divine Light Court, it's not high either. Qin Zijiang looked at Chang Xingnan. Her eyes were dazzled. She flapped her wings and looked down on everything. "It's enough to deal with you." Chang Xingnan raised her eyes slightly, and the corners of her mouth curled up slightly. Her delicate face was moving, and she was undoubtedly a peerless beauty. At this moment, her voice was just as calm. However, at this moment, profound energy rippled out from her delicate body. "Let me see how strong the disciples of the Divine Light Court are." Qin Zijiang's lips curved into a smile. She flapped her wings and golden light burst out. Her body was like a golden goose pouncing on its prey. She was as fast as lightning, and her aura as disdainful as thunder. Her mighty aura, Heavenly Dragon Empire, gods, Chang Xingnan. She's so fast. Looking at Qin Zijiang's terrifying speed, many people's expressions changed as they watched nervously. At this moment, all eyes on the city gate tower were nervously looking at the graceful figure. The first princess Chang Xingnan rarely showed her face in the imperial capital, and rarely returned to the imperial capital. She had always been cultivating in the Divine Light Court, and had never fought in the imperial capital. Therefore, no one knew what level the first princess Chang Xingnan's cultivation had reached. Com is do's princess do you Luan king do king n's great heavenly lose nn, her princess nin princess. She was the only one from the imperial Qing family to show up this time, which attracted the attention of many old people. Boom! Qin Zijiang leaped into the air like a real golden goose diving down. She flapped her right wing again, producing a series of clanging noises. A golden wing swept across the sky. Layers upon layers of golden mist turned into a windstorm, carrying traces of the power of stars. Instantly, a blinding golden light soared into the sky, suppressing Cheng Shengnan. Cheng Shengnan moved. Just as Qin Zijiang's silhouette grew larger and larger in her eyes, her beautiful face remained as calm as ever. Her clear eyes shone with runic light as her jade-white hands swept through the air. She didn't evade, but met the attack head-on. Whoosh! In that instant, First Princess Cheng Shengnan revealed her vast and mighty cultivation strength. Waves of profound energy surged from within her delicate body, and her speed grew faster and faster. Suddenly, her hand seals changed. Her slender hand moved, and a palm print shot out. The palm print was wrapped in talisman runes, and a radiance blossomed like a bright moon in the sky, directly blocking Qin Zijiang's wing. A wing and a palm collided, causing the air in the surrounding space to ripple in an unstoppable manner. Dazzling runes shattered one after another, causing the countless gazes in the surroundings to shudder in fear when they collided. Just now, Dewey was fiercely defeated with a single touch. Would the first princess be able to withstand it now? Rumble. In midair, waves of chi billowed to the heavens as the two attacks collided. Runes and astonishing power were constantly erupting from the collision. The ground of the plaza trembled violently as the terrifying energy seemed to want to tear the space apart. At this moment, Princess Cheng Shengnan was wrapped in dazzling light. Her beautiful face was holy and noble. The light from her body was like a full moon halo, enveloping her graceful body. From afar, her graceful and slender body looked even more extraordinary and noble. She is also at the martial marquis realm. The princess is indeed stronger than Du Yi. Her aura seems to be stronger than Qin Zijiang's. She is almost at the middle stage of the martial marquis realm. On the city gate tower, there was a great deal of astonishment. At this moment, Princess Cheng Shengnan's aura had erupted without any reservation. She had reached the martial marquis realm and was at the middle stage of the martial marquis realm. She is not weak. She is also very beautiful. Du Xiaofu looked at the slender and graceful figure in the air. The corners of his mouth curling into an indifferent arc. She is indeed a disciple of the Light Palace. Qin Zijiang's eyes narrowed. At the same time, her left wing vibrated and swept out. Golden light once again swept towards Princess Cheng Shengnan. The mighty aura intensified. At this moment, Cheng Shengnan's bright eyes moved slightly. The full moon halo was enshrouding her. It was breathtaking and peerless. At the same time, Cheng Shengnan's left hand also moved. There was a sudden explosion of terrifying runes in her palm. A ball of dazzling light bloomed, producing a buzzing sound of wind and thunder. An ancient and terrifying aura rushed out, and the terrifying fluctuations caused the world to tremble. What a strong, oppressive aura! Under such a terrifying aura, the hearts of the spectators inexplicably gushed with fear. A terrifying pressure descended on this part of the sky, causing people to tremble and almost collapse to the ground. Buzz! A green and white sword appeared in Princess Cheng Shengnan's left hand. The sword was very blunt and thick, but it was incomparably sharp. Multicolored light suddenly soared into the sky, accompanied by a murderous aura that swept across the sky. It channeled the energy of heaven and earth, causing the world to tremble. This is a Dao weapon, a middle-grade Dao weapon. Du Xiaofu was shocked. He immediately felt the terror of the green-white sword. The green-white sword had actually reached the level of a middle-grade Dao artifact. It is not a weak Dao weapon. Du Xiaoyao licked her lips with her pale golden spirit eyes fluctuating. Stone Dragon Tempest Sword. Stone Dragon Tempest Sword, a middle-grade Dao weapon. It is the most precious treasure of the Stone Dragon Empire. It has always been in the hands of the Emperor and is regarded as a token of the Empire. I didn't expect Emperor Cheng to pass it to Princess Chengshengnan. Princess Chengshengnan has the stone dragon Tempest sword. This is probably arranged by Emperor Cheng for this kingdom war. On the city tower, an old man suddenly exclaimed in shock. Even the Protector King and North Vanquishing King's eyes fluctuated. Buzz buzz, as Qin Zijiang's left wing swept out, Princess Chengshengnan waved her hand and the stone dragon Tempest sword in her hand swept out. Sword light flashed with an incomparably powerful aura. Accompanied by the sound of wind and thunder, vast and mighty ripples swept out like an ocean, as if they were tearing through space. In the end, they ruthlessly landed on Qin Zijiang's left wing. Chi-chi, the sword light surged and rose. Multicolored light filled the sky as wind and thunder resounded in the sky. Then, under countless trembling gazes, where the sword light passed, the golden wings were directly shattered. Starting from Qin Zijiang's arm and extending to her entire shoulder, the golden wings, which were several zhang in length, were directly cut off. Then, they turned into several palm-sized pieces that floated in the air. Poochie, as the light bloomed, Qin Zijiang spat out a mouthful of blood. She immediately retreated step by step, and her face became extremely pale. The rune energy disappeared, and the dazzling light receded. Qin Zijiang floated in the air with dark red blood flowing from the corner of her mouth. She looked at Princess Chengshengnan in front of her with a complicated expression. She opened her mouth and said, "You are indeed a disciple of the Temple of Light. You also have the stone dragon Tempest sword in your hand. I am indeed no match for you. You win this battle." Chi-chi, Qin Zijiang put away the golden wing that floated in the air. She pointed at the void and immediately flew away. She returned to the Tianhu Empire's formation on the city tower. Princess Chengshengnan wins. On the city tower, the burly man's voice suddenly resounded in the air and spread out. Princess Chengshengnan, Princess Chengshengnan, Princess Chengshengnan. Inside and outside of the square, voices of excitement suddenly resounded through the clouds, and the entire square was in an uproar. Elder sister is so powerful. Second Princess Cheng Yin smiled. Although her youthful face was not as beautiful as first Princess Chengshengnan, it was still extremely moving. Tianhu Empire, humph. Cheng Chao snorted coldly, her eyes filled with arrogance. Then, she glanced at the Du household's formation and revealed some cold arrogance and disdain. "I can't win. Cousin, I'll leave it to you." Qin Zijiang's figure landed on the Tianhu Empire's formation. She wiped the blood from the corner of her mouth and then said to a girl sitting beside her, "Okay." The woman stood up gracefully. Her red lips parted slightly, her waist was slender, and her figure was graceful. Her black hair was soft and smooth, and her delicate appearance revealed an extraordinary bearing. She was absolutely not an ordinary woman, and her bearing was difficult to compare to. Chi, as her voice fell, the girl lightly tapped the ground with the tip of her foot. Her figure floated in the air like duckweed, and then she flew away. Chapter 454. Tianhu Empire, Mu Xian. Mu Xian, I've heard of you. Direct disciple of the Sky Serpent sect. Chengshengnan looked at Mu Xian, her eyes and face moving slightly. The stone dragon wind and thunder sword in her hand was suffused with light. Mu Xian looked at Chengshengnan, her lips curling slightly, her teeth faintly visible. "I've also heard of you, disciple of the Radiant Palace." As her voice fell, Mu Xian flipped her jade-white palm, and a green snake sword appeared in her hand. Its shape was agile, like a spirit snake gliding through the air. Light suddenly bloomed and spread. Boom! As the green snake sword appeared, dazzling runes suddenly shot into the sky, and waves of energy gathered like a storm, lingering in the surroundings. "This is my sect's Azure Sun Boundless Sword, a middle-grade Dao weapon. Make your move." As Mu Xian's voice fell, the Azure Sun Boundless Sword in her hand spread like a green sun, its power spreading and suppressing the sky. "It should taste good. I really want to eat it." Seeing Mu Xian's Azure Sun Boundless Sword, Du Xiaoyao's eyes lit up again, and her saliva was about to fall out. "Another middle-grade Dao weapon. It's really good to have a background and foundation." Du Xiaofu looked at the sky in front of him and sighed. It was difficult for a martial king realm expert to possess a middle-grade Taoist weapon. Even a martial royal realm expert who was close to the legendary level might not necessarily possess a middle-grade Taoist weapon. At this moment, Mu Xian and First Princess Chengsheng both had middle-grade Dao weapons, which made Du Xiaofu sigh. However, thinking that he had the Tyrant Shadow and the more powerful purple-gold Heavenly Palace that he could not use yet, Du Xiaofu's heart immediately calmed down. Two gorgeous ladies were standing in the air. Both of them were peerlessly beautiful, and both of them could cause men to suddenly lose their souls. Under the attentive gazes of the crowd, the two beautiful figures in midair closed their eyes after their eyes met. After the two ladies closed their eyes, their beautiful faces immediately became solemn and sacred. Both of them were enveloped by light, and their moving faces were unforgettable. Buzz buzz. At this moment, the treasured swords in their jade-like hands floated in front of them, emitting a clanging sound. Multicolored light flourished, and mysterious runes spread out, constantly emitting a dazzling light. Swish swish. With a bang, the two treasured swords in midair moved. Both of them emitted a dazzling glow of talisman markings, and their auras surged. The radiance on the green sun boundless sword was like the sun as it clashed against the stone dragon Tempest sword. Wave after wave of terrifying sword radiance exploded out, surging out like waves of the sea. Inside the stone dragon wind and thunder sword, a buzzing sound of wind and thunder resounded, transforming into 9 identical treasured swords. All of them had runes flashing about, forming a sword formation. Sword radiance erupted, gushing with energy, connecting head to tail. Wherever they passed, the plaza below would continuously crack. The two frightening middle-grade Dao treasures instantly clashed in midair. Both of them tumbled, emitting a dazzling light and erupting with power. The green sun boundless sword's power was terrifying. Sword radiance wreaked havoc, like the roaring waves of the sea, setting off monstrous waves. Each wave was more frightening than the previous one, and mysterious runes surged, suppressing the sky. The stone dragon wind and thunder sword had many transformations, and the sword formation was astonishing. Wind and thunder resounded, and mysterious runes shone brightly in the sky, shocking everyone's soul. The two treasured swords clashed, tearing apart the heavens and the earth, as if wanting to overturn the space. It was like a sea of swords occupying the sky, and its power was overwhelming. Looking at the duel between the Dao treasures in midair, everyone was dumbfounded and gasped. The duel between the two ladies had actually reached such a stage. Using the soul to control the sword, the two of them have already merged their souls with the Dao treasures. This level is impossible for ordinary people to achieve. I didn't expect the first princess to have also reached such a level. Wu Kei was rather surprised. The first princess Chang Shengnan's current cultivation was far beyond her. This kind of duel is even more dangerous than a physical duel. The slightest carelessness will damage one's spirit and soul, and in the worst case, the weapon will be destroyed and the person will die. Guo Xiaofeng said softly. At this moment, his deep gaze was fixed on the sky. Ghost Child stood behind Du Xiaofu, closest to Du Xiaofu. He gently pushed Du Xiaofu's shoulder and asked, "In your opinion, who will win?" Du Xiaofu looked at the field. The cultivation levels of the two ladies seemed to be similar, and Mu Xian from the Tianhu Empire had obviously reached the complete martial lord realm. The stone dragon wind and thunder sword and the green sun boundless sword in their hands were both middle-grade Dao treasures, and each of them was extraordinary. It would be difficult to determine the winner. Will it be a draw again? I can't tell. After observing for a while, Du Xiaofu smiled bitterly and replied to Ghost Child. It was really difficult to see the result. At this moment, in the front row of the Long Tower, the North Vanquishing Prince, the Protector King, and many other experts were looking at the sky with concern. Many of their eyes were accompanied by nervousness. I didn't expect the Stone Dragon Empire to have some talents. No wonder some people in the Empire have scruples. In the Tianhu Empire's lineup, the black-haired old man looked at the sky and his eyes flickered. They do have some foundation. I didn't expect the Cheng family's Cheng Shengnan to have reached such a level. The black-haired old man said, although it's passable, it won't change the result, Lu Kuan said softly. After looking at the field for a while, his gaze didn't change much. Whoosh! In the sky, sword radiance filled the sky. It was terrifying, and it made people tremble in fear. The sword radiance that filled the sky raged like a disaster. The sky was already filled with wind and clouds. The sky was dark, and the energy exploded. It was incomparably violent and terrifying. Countless sword radiance intertwined with each other. The sword radiance fluctuated, and the sword radiance crackled in the sky. Wind and thunder rumbled, spreading across the sky. The terrifying sword radiance swept across like a tsunami, destroying everything in its path. It was extremely terrifying. Too strong. Among the onlookers, many of them trembled, their hearts and souls uneasy. Amidst such a frightening battle, the two ladies, who had their eyes tightly shut, suddenly opened their eyes at the same time. Runes flickered within their eyes as boundless light surged around their bodies. Sky-suppressing python. Muexian moved. She tapped the void with the tip of her foot and swept across the sky. Rays of light lingered around her body. Her jade-white hands moved, and a spiritual python wrapped in light condensed. Mysterious runes surged, and it directly collided with Cheng Shengnan. The first princess, Cheng Shengnan, also moved. Her body bloomed with light, and it was like a full moon halo that enveloped her graceful body. It was breathtaking and peerless. Phoenix dancing to the horizon. Her hand seals changed. At this moment, her beautiful face was holy and noble, untainted by the mortal world. Powerful and graceful. Mysterious runes surged around her body, and it turned into an illusory phoenix shadow that swept across with a loud bang. Boom! In such a confrontation, it seemed as if the entire world was about to be overturned. Terrifying auras overflowed into the sky, causing the surrounding space to tremble and emit strands of divine light. Talismans erupted like fireworks, causing the sky to become dazzling. Bang, bang, bang. At this moment, the ground of the square kept collapsing, and the sky rumbled. Many of the square's ground directly exploded and turned into dust. Such a terrifying scene shocked not only the spectators, but even the old men on the tower were shocked. Many of the old men, facing such a terrifying power, secretly lamented that they were inferior. The vast aura then disappeared. In the sky, the stone dragon wind and thunder sword and the green sun boundless sword returned to their hands. Everything seemed to have returned to normal, but because of the battle between the two, the entire square seemed to have been overturned. The two women stepped into the air, looking graceful. Their hair was slightly messy, and as the wind rippled, their hair fluttered, adding to their charm. Looks like we can only let them decide the outcome. What do you think? Muexian said, looking at the slender and graceful figure in front of her, and a faint trace of shock flashed across her eyes. That's right. The outcome will be decided by the two of them. Cheng Shengnan nodded. His eyes were indifferent, and his temperament was clear and noble. Chi. Their eyes met, and they seemed to have a tacit understanding. Both of them put away their Tao artifacts, and the two beautiful figures stepped on the void at almost the same time, and leaped back into the sky. Puffed. Muexian returned to the Tianhu Empire's side. Her graceful figure landed, and she could no longer hold back the blood in her mouth. She then took out a handkerchief to wipe the blood at the corner of her mouth, and looked at Lu Kuan, saying, "Senior Lu, I'll leave it to you. That Cheng Shengnan is very strong. Leave the rest to me. The Stone Dragon Empire's outcome cannot be changed." Lu Kuan stood up slightly, and an evil aura began to fluctuate from his body. Within the Stone Dragon Empire, as Cheng Shengnan returned, her beautiful face suddenly paled under everyone's gazes. She suddenly coughed up a mouthful of blood. As expected, it's a draw, Du Xiaofu said softly. Looking at Cheng Shengnan's appearance, he knew that Muexian wasn't any better. Otherwise, she wouldn't have agreed to a draw. Cheng Shengnan looked at the handsome man in azure clothes and bit her red lips, saying, "I'll leave it to you. You can't lose." The man in azure clothes stood up. His figure was tall and graceful, and there was a hint of pride in his eyes. That kind of pride seemed to come from his birth. He replied softly, I won't disgrace the name of the Du family, and I won't disgrace the Stone Dragon Empire. This round is a draw. The last two contestants will come up. On the tower, the big man came back to his senses after a while. He judged that the battle between the first princess and Mu Xian had ended in a draw. He immediately announced loudly, and his voice reverberated through the clouds. Then, a melodious and deep sound of a bell echoed through the entire arena. Boom! Following the sound of the bell, the entire arena was in an uproar. The battle between the 8 contestants had ended in a draw, and the final round would determine the true winner of the Kingdom War. Everyone knew that although the battle between the 8 of them earlier was shocking, it had caused their hearts to tremble. However, the true pinnacle of this Kingdom War was undoubtedly the final 2 contestants. And now, the true pinnacle of the battle between the final 2 contestants was about to begin. I did not slack off today. These fights are a little difficult to write. Xiao Yu's old problem is that there are too many words for each fight. Many readers have complained about this, so these fights are limited to 1 chapter at most. I also have to think about some new fights, so it takes me a few hours to write a chapter. I hope that readers can feel that Xiao Yu is working hard with these recent changes. I welcome everyone to tell Xiao Yu about your opinions on the book. This way, Xiao Yu will be able to write better. Once again, I would like to thank all of you. Once again, I will shamelessly ask for flowers, recommendation tickets, and other support. Chapter 455. Translator. H2DH2 Mr. Under the watchful gazes of the crowd, 2 young men soared into the air and stood in the air above the square. The Du family will send Du Chong, the son of the king and the only talent of the Stone Dragon Empire. He is publicly acknowledged as the strongest among the younger generation. Ouyang Shuang's voice softly landed beside Du Xiaofu's ear. Du Chong, the strongest of the Du family? Du Xiaofu's gaze immediately landed on the green-clothed young man. The aura rippling from his body made it difficult for Du Xiaofu to pry into. The faint, dangerous aura that emanated from him made Du Xiaofu feel as if there was a mysterious ripple within his body. Du Chong stood in the air and looked at Lu Kuan from the Tianhu Empire in front of him. His eyes flashed with a sharp light like lightning. So you are Du Chong from the Du family, the talent of the Stone Dragon Empire. Remember me, Lu Kuan from the Sky Snake sect and the Tianhu Empire. Lu Kuan stepped in the air and looked at Du Chong. There was a faint smile in his eyes, but that smile was filled with disdain. Wait until you have the strength to make me remember you. You came from afar, so make your move first. Du Chong slightly raised his head. On his handsome face, there was a proud arc at the corner of his mouth. This kind of pride made people feel extremely comfortable looking at him. It was as if he was born to be so proud because he was an outstanding person. He had never revealed his talent, but everyone knew that he, Du Chong, was the #1 person among the younger generation in the empire. As the 2 of them spoke, the atmosphere in the square immediately became tense. Everyone could feel the tension in the air, as if a fight was about to break out at any moment. Perhaps ordinary people didn't know of Du Chong's existence. However, the people from the various factions in the imperial capital had never forgotten that he was a true talent. He was a young man from the Du household who was much stronger than Du Yi. Du Yi's name had once shocked the entire imperial capital and the entire empire. However, everyone knew that Du Chong was the true #1 in the Du household. As for Lu Kuan from the Tianhu Empire, the people from the Stone Dragon Empire weren't familiar with him. However, since he was arranged to be the last to fight, it wasn't difficult for the spectators to figure out that he was one of the strongest youths in the Tianhu Empire. Now, the 2 truly outstanding talents of the younger generation of the 2 empires were about to begin the final and crucial battle. Even the spectators could clearly feel their hearts trembling and nervousness from the aura that spread out from the plaza. Come to think of it, the Stone Dragon Empire had never had such an attractive duel before. At least, in the current empire's memory, there had never been such a duel. This duel was related to the reputation of the 2 empires and the 10 prefectures. More importantly, it was also related to the morale of the 2 empires. Who would win in the end? Everyone held their breaths as they thought of this. The surrounding square was strangely silent at this time, but the blood in their bodies was boiling. Countless youngsters were fantasizing about representing the Stone Dragon Empire in this grand event that attracted the attention of the entire empire. They couldn't help but wonder how exciting it would be. Du Chong is the strongest member of the younger generation that our Du family has nurtured with countless resources. He's an outstanding talent. He will definitely win. The elders of the Du family were filled with nervousness and anticipation. Du Chong had been secretly honed by the Du family for 25 years. He was an outstanding talent. He would definitely win in the end. At that time, the entire empire would know that the Du household was the strongest. Even Du Xiaofu, who had been in the limelight recently, was just a decent kid from a branch family. He had some ability, but in the end, he still couldn't compare to the Du household. In the tenth square, Lu Kuan looked around and then a slight smile appeared on his face. He raised his eyebrows and looked at Du Chong. His voice was sinister and arrogant as he said, "It seems like the entire Stone Dragon Empire has great expectations for you. I wonder what their expressions will be when they see you lose. I think it will be very interesting." As Lu Kuan's arrogant and sinister words fell, a surge of profound energy surged around his body. It slowly spread out like a storm. As his profound energy surged, runes flickered and surged out. His aura surged and rushed into the sky, causing the space to tremble. The mighty aura that spread out from Lu Kuan's body instantly caused countless gazes to tremble. His aura was far stronger than that of the first Princess Chengxingnan and Mu Xian who had just fought. Looking at Lu Kuan, Du Qiu's green clothes were trembling from the aura that swept out from Lu Kuan's body. However, his body was like a rock that did not move. He said, "I believe that the people from the Tianhu Empire and the Sky Serpent sect are also waiting for you to return. If they see you return in defeat, it will definitely be extremely interesting." The corner of Du Chong's mouth was slightly lifted after his voice sounded. A mighty aura that was not inferior to the former's immediately erupted like an erupting volcano. In an instant, wind rose and clouds surged in the surrounding sky. Dark clouds gathered together while accompanied by rumbling, lightning flashed, and thunder rolled. Immediately, it spread over this part of the world. The peak of the complete martial marquee stage. Heavens, Du Chong has actually reached the peak of the complete martial marquee stage. At this moment, the entire square was in an uproar. Du Chong from the Du household had actually reached the peak of the complete martial marquee stage. "You really do have some ability." Lu Kuan's eyes moved, but the corners of his mouth lifted into a cold arc. The aura around his body suddenly shook, and a vast and mighty aura suddenly swept out. Both of his eyes strangely turned into a serene color, and a dark and evil aura suddenly rose and swept across the sky. What a powerful pressure! In an instant, the sinister aura that had climbed to the peak caused the hearts of the countless spectators below to tremble. The profound qi in their bodies and their minds were all affected. At this moment, as Lu Kuan's sinister aura rose and swept out, a mighty profound qi within Du Chong's body also surged and exploded. In the sky behind him, silver lightning flashed within the dark clouds. Under the sound of lightning and thunder, it caused one's heart to palpitate. Rumble. The two invisible auras collided and waves of invisible energy spread out. The ground below shook under the influence, as if there was an earthquake. Cracks continuously appeared on the ground, causing it to tremble. What powerful people! Countless gazes could not help but tremble. At this moment, the two people in the sky had yet to officially fight, but they had already caused such a huge commotion. How terrifying was that? Both of them are very strong. Du Xiaofu secretly sighed in his heart. From the aura that the two of them had revealed, the two of them were indeed extremely tyrannical. Du Chong's strength had exceeded Du Xiaofu's expectations. He was at the peak of the complete martial marquee realm. With such a cultivation level, there were probably not many old people in the Du household who could compare to him. As for Lu Kuan's cultivation strength, it made Du Xiaofu sigh. It seemed that the Sky Snake sect really had a deep foundation. Back then in the Savage Beast Mountain range, although Lu Kuan was already very strong, it was not to the point of being too shocking. But now, he had actually reached such a terrifying level. He was not the slightest bit inferior to Du Chong, and was even harder to see through than Du Chong. Boom! Just as Du Xiaofu was secretly sizing up and comparing the two in his heart, the two people in the sky had already reached some kind of tacit understanding. A profound chi light pillar burst out from Du Chang's hand. Mysterious runes surged and a dazzling silver lightning that caused one's heart to palpitate flickered. It seemed to be able to penetrate space and instantly suppress Lu Kuan. At the same time, Lu Kuan had already made his move. The space in front of him fluctuated, as if it had distorted space, and directly resisted the profound chi light pillar. Large amounts of lightning flashed and wreaked havoc in the sky, causing one's heart to palpitate. Lu Kuan, who had blocked the light pillar, had a dark and cold smile on his face. He waved his hand, and the distorted space rippled. The mysterious talisman engravings spread with a faint color and suddenly transformed into a palm print. Accompanied by a dazzling and eye-catching symbol light, it appeared in front of Du Chang in an instant. The palm print slammed out with a surging aura. Just as it arrived in front of Du Chang's body suddenly twisted strangely. As if he could affect space, he immediately deviated from his position. Qi, the dark and cold palm print that erupted from the runes, directly brushed past him. As they intersected, the aura fluctuated in space, causing the green clothes on Du Chang's body to flutter endlessly. Thunder Roll Fist. In a short instant, Du Chang made his move once again. His 5 fingers tightly clenched into fists. Silver lightning overflowed on his fists. The wind and clouds behind him surged, and the dark clouds moved. His fist was like a ball of lightning as it ruthlessly swept down. SK Tisk. Lu Kuan sneered. The palm print that had just missed rotated, and he quickly turned around. His eyes revealed a kind of awe-inspiring aura as they collided in an instant. Rumble. A low and deep energy suddenly exploded. Runes bloomed in a dazzling manner, and waves of air soared into the sky. A terrifying gale swept out and spread. Du Chang did not move at all. Lightning runes flickered in his palm, and mysterious runes surged around his body. A vast and mighty aura swept across the sky, channeling the energy of heaven and earth. Amidst the lightning and thunder, the lightning in Du Chang's palm transformed into a lightning python and instantly swept towards Lu Kuan. Its aura was shocking, and the lightning aura suppressed everything, causing people to tremble in fear. What a powerful Du Chang! This series of attacks and Du Chang's performance caused the elders on the city tower to be shocked. Everyone from the Du family had joy in their eyes. Even the North vanquishing prince in the front row secretly nodded his head. Eldest Princess Chengshengnan stared at the sky. Her beautiful eyes stared intently, unable to take her eyes off him. Chapter 456. Serene Snake Double Kill. Facing Du Chang's lightning python, Lu Kuan did not panic at all. He quickly formed seals with his hands, and strange runes appeared on his arms. In the end, they turned into 2 giant python shadows wrapped in runes. They rushed out like lightning and fiercely collided with the lightning python. Boom! The 2 giant python shadows tangled together like a fried dough twist. They collided with each other, and a low, muffled sound immediately spread. Lightning raged, runes flickered, and energy was annihilated. At this moment, the battle between the 2 people in the sky had already surpassed the limits of the martial marquis realm. Every action made the martial marquis realm experts tremble in fear. That level was already comparable to the martial king realm. Du Chang is so strong. Normal martial king realm experts would have to retreat. His talent is too terrifying. In the front row, Ouyang Qiu could not help but exclaim. Lu Kuan from the Tianhu Empire is also strong. He is not at a disadvantage at all. The strength of these 2 people is comparable to a true martial king. It is not difficult for them to fight against someone of a higher rank. How terrifying! Not far from Ouyang Qiu, a strong old man's eyes flickered with shock. I originally thought that the people of the Stone Dragon Empire were all idiots. I didn't expect them to have some ability. In the air, Lu Kuan smiled evilly. The Stone Dragon Empire has never lacked experts. Put away your ambitions. Otherwise, you will regret it. Du Chang stepped in the air. The lightning around him connected. His aura was domineering and destructive. It made people's hearts tremble. TSK, I gave you some strength and you really opened a dye house. How laughable. Lu Kuan sneered with disdain. Then let's continue. Du Chang lightly shouted. When his voice fell, lightning flashed and thunder rumbled in the sky. Silver lightning snakes formed around his body and finally condensed into a lightning dragon. Rumble. The dragon roared like thunder rumbling in the sky. This was the Du Palace's ultimate martial skill, Lightning Rune Dragon. However, this Lightning Rune Dragon was activated by Du Chang. Compared to Du Yi's previous skill, it was many times stronger. In the sky, lightning raged. Its aura was destructive. It was not comparable to Du Yi's previous skill. Thunder Talisman Flood Dragon. The thunder and lightning dragon roared like thunder. Under Du Chang's control, the silver lightning flashed and wreaked havoc in the sky. Accompanied by a vast aura of destruction, the thunder and lightning poured down like an ocean, directly suppressing Lu Kuan. The vast and mighty lightning seemed to have formed a sea of lightning in the sky. Dark clouds rolled, lightning flashed, and thunder rumbled, resounding throughout the heavens and earth. You have some skills, but it doesn't seem to be enough. Lu Kuan sneered. Faint multicolored light filled the sky and dazzling talisman patterns flickered in his eyes. A wave of evil Xian Qi flowed out of his body like a faint black ink, forming a huge black pillar of light. At this moment, Lu Kuan's aura swept across the sky. The aura was so strong that it directly surpassed that of an ordinary peak martial marquis. All of a sudden, the aura on Lu Kuan's body was not something an ordinary martial marquis could compare to. It could even be considered as a quasi-martial king expert. There was even a faint martial king aura on his body. So strong. Feeling the aura spreading out from Lu Kuan's body, the elders of the Stone Dragon Empire on the city tower could not help but be shocked. All the younger generation exclaimed. Even the general, Gu Xinyan, Gue Hua, Wu Kei, and the others who had returned at this time felt inferior to Lu Kuan. Walala! The black pillar of light behind Lu Kuan turned into a black handprint. Within the handprint, there was a faint spiritual snake swimming. The black light was deep, hiding an extremely terrifying and violent power. The moment the thunder and lightning dragon swept over, the black handprint also slammed down. Under countless gazes, the two collided. At this moment, the two terrifying energies collided fiercely like meteorites. What was quite surprising was that the collision of the two energies did not immediately cause the slightest muffled sound. Instead, as the two energies collided, they constantly eroded and confronted each other. The surrounding space suddenly rippled with small circles of cracks, revealing a deep light, as if the void was about to be torn apart. The whole place was silent, but everyone's eyes were fixed on the black handprint and the thunder and lightning dragon in the sky. Their eyes could not help but tremble violently. The Xian Qi in their bodies froze, and a chill rose in their hearts. Everyone could feel the two destructive forces contained in the dazzling rune light erosion. At this moment, countless eyes on the city tower were nervous. Even the North Vanquishing Prince and the Protector King's eyes were rippling. Finally, the collision in the sky had a reaction. Waves of air erupted. The thunder and lightning dragon and the two giant python phantoms were like bombs. The two terrifying forces exploded in the sky. Walala! The runes shattered, and Xian Qi surged. The dazzling light spread out like gorgeous fireworks. The energy contained was violent and destructive. The ground of the square below cracked, and the earth shook. A storm swept over. It was like a disaster. Thump thump. This time, Du Chang could no longer remain still. His body staggered a few steps back from the violent energy. He stepped on the void, causing ripples, and only then did he stabilize his body. Humph! A muffled groan came from Du Chang's throat. A sweet taste gushed out, and he forcefully swallowed it. At this moment, Lu Kuan's body took 2 steps back and stabilized. His gaze slightly moved, and he indifferently sneered. I said, "You're not enough. Bring out your full strength." Looking at Lu Kuan, who was surrounded by an evil aura like a whirlwind, Du Chang's eyes flickered with a silver snake light. Then, they became serious and fierce. His handprint condensed, and a monstrous silver snake light swept out from his body. The mysterious runes on his skin flickered, and lightning rippled on his skin. It was suffused with a palpitating luster. As the lightning fluctuated, an indescribable sense of destruction spread out from Du Chang's body. Roar! Suddenly, Du Chang opened his mouth and roared. His martial veins moved, and his entire body turned into mysterious runes that soared into the sky. A huge purple ape martial spirit appeared. On the purple ape's skin, there were streaks of lightning that spread like patterns. However, it was purple. From afar, it looked like a demon god. It was overbearing and destructive, causing people to tremble in fear. Boom! At this moment, the wind and clouds surged in the sky. Thunder and lightning crisscrossed, and the rumbling sound was endless. The terrifying purple ape covered the sky. It was not illusory, and it was not much different from a real one. It was equivalent to a real purple ape covering the sky. It was completely different from an ordinary martial lord realm cultivator's appearance after communicating with the Vane Spirit and merging with the Vane Spirit. Purple Light Thunder Berserk Ape, a terrifying demonic beast ranked on the Heavenly Beast list. This is Du Chang's Vane Spirit. It is said that an expert from the Du Palace went to the central region and paid a great price to obtain the blood essence of the Purple Light Thunder Berserk Ape for Du Chang. The Vane Spirit is at the peak of the complete Martial Lord realm. He has not stepped into the Martial King realm, but he can completely merge with the Vane Spirit. No wonder he is an outstanding talent. A Martial Lord realm cultivator can completely merge with the Vane Spirit and directly reach the Martial King realm. Only an outstanding talent can do that. I am afraid that within the Martial Lord realm, Du Chang is invincible. Martial Lords will not be able to resist him. At this moment, all the elders around the city tower and the square were shocked when they saw this scene. An outstanding talent is so terrifying. Is the winner going to be decided? The Du Palace's lineup was filled with anticipation. Du Chang was an outstanding talent. Although he had not reached the Martial King realm, he had the power of a Martial King. His opponent would not be able to resist him. Looking at the sky, the Purple Light Thunder Berserk Ape's eyes rippled with lightning. Its huge body stood in the air, and bright runes and lightning surged from its body. High up in the sky, within the dark clouds, countless lightning spread. The sky was dark, and the sky was dark. The sky above the square was bright, as if it was a punishment from the heavens. Rumble. The sound of thunder resounded continuously in the sky. Then, it circled around the Purple Light Thunder Berserk Ape. Streaks of lightning roared around the Purple Light Thunder Berserk Ape, causing the sky to become brighter and brighter. Strange clanging sounds could be heard in the air. Then, above the Purple Light Thunder Berserk Ape's head, streaks of silver lightning began to condense into a huge lightning vortex. Silver snakes flashed, and the vortex spun continuously. Streaks of energy surged out crazily, causing the Purple Light Thunder Berserk Ape to be surrounded by lightning. Its aura was domineering and destructive. At this moment, no one noticed that Du Xiaofu's face was flushed red. It was as if he was enduring some kind of pain. At this moment, the lightning that came from Du Xiaofu's body caused the hidden mysterious power in his body to awaken. Walala! The Purple Light Thunder Berserk Ape moved. With a wave of its hand, the terrifying lightning vortex in the surroundings trembled and formed a huge lightning ball. Then, it stuck to the Purple Light Thunder Berserk Ape's palm. At this moment, the faces of countless people in the surroundings were ghastly pale as their hearts trembled in fear. The destructive energy that suffused out from the ball of lightning was probably sufficient to raze this square to the ground and obliterate the souls of the living beings in the surroundings. At this moment, the strength that Du Chang had activated was overwhelming. How terrifying. I'm afraid that even a Martial King initial stage cultivator would have to retreat and not dare to fight back. On the city tower, many elders were shocked. If such a terrifying power were to explode, the countless living beings in the square below would be in big trouble. Boom! The lightning ball moved. The Purple Light Thunder Berserk Ape rushed out and pushed the huge lightning ball that was almost the same size as its body towards Lu Kuan. At this moment, the lightning ball moved. Countless lightning bolts shot into the sky. Its aura was crazy and destructive. Silver snakes wreaked havoc in the sky and tore the space apart. Chapter 457. Crack, crack. Wherever the lightning ball passed, space would split apart and countless runes would be destroyed. Wherever it passed, long streaks of lightning would appear, as if a lightning dragon had emerged from the void. Terrifying energy spread from the lightning ball. The vast and destructive aura caused everyone's hair to stand on end and their scalps to explode. The Tianhu Empire's Lu Kuan won't be able to resist this time. How can the Tianhu Empire compare to our Stone Dragon Empire? Our Stone Dragon Empire has Du Chong. Everyone's hearts trembled in fear, but their hearts were also filled with anticipation. With such a vast and mighty power, even those who had just reached the initial stage of the martial king realm would not dare to resist. No matter how extraordinary Lu Kuan of the Tianhu Empire was, he would still be suppressed by Du Wan. Our Du family is still the Du family. The Du family's hero will proudly resound throughout the world today. Looking at the terrifying power that Du Chong had unleashed, the eyes of the elders of the Du family were filled with fanaticism. The younger generation was even more excited. The Du family of the Du family was still unmatched within the Stone Dragon Empire. It seemed long, but in reality, it happened extremely quickly. Under countless trembling gazes, the terrifying lightning ball, accompanied by flashes of lightning and roars of thunder, had already arrived in front of Lu Kuan. And at this moment, under many doubtful and shocked gazes, Lu Kuan waved his hand slightly. Then, he raised his hand and lightly pressed his palm against the terrifying and destructive lightning ball. At this moment, the corners of Lu Kuan's mouth curled into a faint sneer as he softly uttered a word. "Stop." As Lu Kuan spoke, under everyone's gazes, Lu Kuan, who seemed extremely small in front of the terrifying lightning ball, lightly pressed his palm and blocked the lightning ball. Boom! In front of the palm print, the lightning ball's advance was forcefully stopped, unable to move forward even an inch. Heavens! When this scene appeared, countless gazes around the square were instantly dumbfounded. Shocked gazes froze on their faces. At this moment, even the North Vanquishing Prince and the Protector King, who were on the city gate tower, had violent fluctuations in their eyes. Their eyes were twitching. Only the black-haired old man and the brown-haired old man from the Tianhu Empire had smiles on their faces. Their eyes were filled with disdain and contempt. The outcome was within their expectations. How could there be a peer in the Stone Dragon Empire who could resist Lu Kuan? It was simply impossible. As Lu Kuan's palm gently pressed against the overbearing and destructive lightning ball, the corners of his mouth lifted into a sneer. With an indifferent smile, he softly said, as expected of an outstanding talent, "Within the martial marquis stage, it is truly difficult for anyone to contend against you. Even when I was at the peak of the perfect martial marquis stage, I'm afraid that it would take me some effort to deal with you. The Du family's lightning ultimacy is truly extraordinary." His voice paused for a moment as a trace of ridicule suddenly surfaced on Lu Kuan's sneering face. It was like a cat playing with a mouse. Suddenly, a voice accompanied by profound chi resounded in the air like a thunderclap. "It's a pity that the current me is no longer a martial marquis but a martial king. In front of me, you are nothing." Martial king. As Lu Kuan's voice fell, the entire arena was shocked. It was like a thunderclap that resounded in one's ears. It was enough to make one's heart tremble in fear. In the sky, Lu Kuan's feet stepped into the air. The palm that touched the destructive lightning ball suddenly erupted with faint and sinister talisman runes. It was as if it had erupted from a world of darkness. The sinister chi swept across the sky, causing the sky to tremble incessantly. At this moment, the lightning ball was also trembling. A large area of the surrounding space was distorted as if the space was about to collapse. Finally, after a series of trembling sounds, the huge lightning ball shook with a loud bang and finally exploded completely. Rumble! The lightning ball exploded and a thunderous roar resounded through the sky. It was deafening and caused pain in the eardrums of those who heard it. The spectators who were weaker covered their ears with their hands. Their faces were deathly pale, and cold sweat dripped down their bodies. The thunderous roar shook their souls, and they were unable to resist it. Walala! A violent energy storm swept out like a hurricane. A large area of dazzling talisman runes shattered and silver lightning wreaked havoc. Coo! The earth trembled incessantly. Even the sturdy and thick towers around the plaza were shaking and cracking. Such a terrifying scene caused countless people to suck in a breath of cold air. Outstanding talent. Although you're extraordinary, in front of this king, you're nothing. Because this king is a human king. Not to mention that you're only at the peak of the complete martial lord realm. Even if you've already stepped into the martial king realm, you're still not my match. How can you resist the might of this king's human king? A mocking and disdainful sneer resounded. As his voice fell, Lu Kuan's figure had already appeared in front of Du Chong. At the same time, there was a terrifying fist that seemed to be wrapped around by a spirit snake. The talisman runes gushed out and heavily landed on Du Chong's chest. Bang! Poochie! As the fist landed, the lightning profound chi halo in front of Du Chong cracked and shattered. His mouth responded by spitting out mouthfuls of dark red blood. His body was like a bird with broken wings as he fell straight down from the sky. Martial King Realm, Human King. As his body fell, he looked up at the evil figure that was getting further and further away. Within Du Chong's eyes, there was shock, astonishment, bewilderment, and dullness. It was very complicated. Bang, bang, bang. As Du Chong fell, the ground in the plaza shook and the mountains shook. The ground collapsed one after another. Dust flew everywhere and gravel shot out. Even the hearts of countless people fiercely trembled as if they were hammered by a heavy hammer. On the tower, the gazes of the people from the Stone Dragon Empire followed Du Chong's falling body. Their hearts trembled, especially the people from the Du family. Their eyes were dull and dull. It was as if they had suddenly fallen from heaven to hell. Originally, everyone thought that Lu Kuan was no longer a match for him. Who would have thought that the result would be like this? Human King, Lu Kuan is a human king. The legendary human king's talent. Terrifying, too terrifying. A 22 or 23-year-old martial king with the talent of a human king. How terrifying is this? Everyone was dumbfounded. On the tower, countless old people trembled. To the experts of the various major powers, what did the two words human king mean? Others might not know, but they knew very well. A human king was an existence that surpassed the outstanding talents. To them, this kind of talent only existed in legends. It was said that in the world, those who could reach the human king's talent would be able to reach a terrifying level in the martial Dao or talisman Dao. It was an existence that ordinary people could not reach even if they exhausted their entire life's strength and cultivated diligently. The human king's talent was like the bloodline of demonic beasts. The bloodline of an overlord was innately able to suppress 10,000 beasts and control 10,000 beasts. As for the human king's talent, it was able to suppress the outstanding talents and countless cultivators. It was the absolute king of the human race. No one could contend against it. Lu Kuan was at most 22 or 23 years old. The human king's talent was already at the martial king realm. Some of the old people knew very well what such terrifying talent meant. It was rumored that after cultivating to the final level, the martial emperor realm was the martial honorable realm. As for the deeper levels, only those outstanding talents and human kings could step into them. If an ordinary person wanted to step into them, they might not be able to do so even if they exhausted their entire life's effort. Lu Kuan stood in the air with his clothes fluttering in the wind. He had a sneer on his face as he looked around with a mocking smile. He already knew this result before he came to the Stone Dragon Empire. If it wasn't for the order of his sect and the Tianhu Empire's emperor, he wouldn't have bothered to come to the tiny Stone Dragon Empire. Around the square, almost everyone's gazes landed on the figure in mid-air. They were shocked and fearful. The human king's pressure that was faintly emitted from the figure made people tremble like monstrous beasts that had seen their monstrous beast king. The human king's talent, the heavens are helping the Tianhu Empire. The North vanquishing king's eyes trembled. On his thin and wrinkled face, his clear eyes were filled with worry. Is the Stone Dragon Empire really doomed this time? The Protector King's face twitched slightly, and within his eyes, there was a lightning-like glow. At this moment, he was filled with anxiety. The first Princess Chang Xingnan's delicate face was pale. Her heart was trembling and her eyes were filled with sadness. In the Golden Dragon Palace in the distance, a lifelike golden dragon was circling around. A figure in a dragon robe stood with his hands behind his back. There seemed to be a golden dragon circling around his body, causing people to feel intimidated even from afar. He looked at the top of the palace and frowned. He muttered, "Is the Stone Dragon Empire really going to face its doom this time? The heavens are helping the Tianhu Empire." On the cracked square, Du Chang's defeated figure stood up from the rubble. He was covered in blood, and his face was pale. His eyes were dispirited and filled with complicated emotions. "We've lost. We've actually lost." It was unknown whether it was because of Du Chang's defeat or Lu Kuan's valiance, but the general, Gu Xinyan, Ghostchild, Wu Qing, Guo Xiaofeng, Second Princess Cheng Yin, and the others were all in a daze. On the city gate tower, Du Xiaofu's expression returned to normal. Following Du Chang's defeat, the mysterious energy that had been implicated in his body also disappeared. It was as if nothing had happened. The Stone Dragon Empire can't even withstand a single blow. Obediently hand over the 10 prefectures. In the air, Lu Kuan sneered. His eyes were filled with disdain and ridicule as he swept his gaze around. Around the square, countless eyes trembled with anger. Du Chang has also lost. Looking at the sky, Du Xiaofu's eyes moved slightly. Although he didn't like the Du family, seeing Du Chang's defeat and Lu Kuan's figure in the sky made him feel somewhat unhappy. "I didn't expect the Stone Dragon Empire to have such an outstanding talent. The Tianhu Empire also has a human king. They're not weak." Zhen Xingchuan's voice softly entered Du Xiaofu's ears. He sighed. "Today's update is over. Brothers, go to bed early and continue to seek protection and love. Little you, continue to work hard tomorrow." Chapter 458. Hero, Human Monarch. Du Xiaofu wasn't too clear about the concept of hero and human monarch. With Zhen Xingchuan's previous instructions, it wasn't appropriate for him to ask Zhen Xingchun about it. "Du Chang, did you see that? Just as I said, their expressions must be wonderful after seeing your miserable defeat. Kiki, the younger generation of the Stone Dragon Empire, can't even withstand a single blow. They're all trash." In the sky, Lu Kuan looked down at Du Chang, who was crawling to his feet. His mocking gaze was like a cat playing with a mouse. Du Chang stared at the sky as if he wanted to say something. However, before he could open his mouth, blood dripped from the corner of his mouth, and he spat out another mouthful of blood. Judging from his withered aura and ashen complexion, it was impossible for him to continue fighting. Bastard, he's too arrogant. Victory is victory. How dare he be so arrogant? He's too much of a bully. As soon as Lu Kuan's voice fell, the crowd was filled with indignation. Everyone's eyes were red from the ridicule and humiliation. However, everyone knew that even Du Chang from the Du household had been defeated. Lu Kuan from the Tianhu Empire indeed had the capital to be arrogant. Not to mention the younger generation. Even the older generation in the entire Stone Dragon Empire wouldn't be Lu Kuan's opponent. The crowd was in an uproar. Some people cursed softly. Countless people were indignant, but no one dared to step forward. "Kiki, what's wrong? The Stone Dragon Empire still hasn't announced their defeat? Could it be that they want me to kill Du Chang?" Lu Kuan didn't care about the commotion in the surrounding plaza. After sweeping his disdainful gaze, he sneered at the people from the Stone Dragon Empire on the city gate tower. His gaze was cold as he sneered. However, when Lu Kuan's gaze swept past Du Xiaofu, he paused for a moment. Although it had been a while since he returned from the barbaric Beast Mountain range, he could still recognize this young man. If it wasn't for this young man who killed the leader of the White Leopard hunting group, the people from the Profound Talisman sect wouldn't have been able to escape, and he wouldn't have had to flee pathetically from the Profound Underworld sect and Profound Talisman sect. Stone Dragon Empire, Tianhu Empire. On the city gate, Lu Kuan's empire, Dragon Empires. Alas, after hearing Lu Kuan's words, He had no choice but to immediately announce the announcement. Lu Kuan's Dragon Empire. However, before the strong cultivator could finish his sentence, Lu Kuan sneered again. His voice was filled with disdain and arrogance. His Xian Qi reverberated throughout the square. He said, "How about this? If any of the young people from the Stone Dragon Empire dares to fight, they'll be responsible for their own deaths and will consider it your victory. How about that? Who else dares to fight?" When Lu Kuan finished speaking, the strong cultivator on the city wall stopped talking. He looked up at the city wall, hoping for a miracle. The is dragon to do? Lu do loses, SA2, TS2s. It seems like the Stone Dragon Empire's younger generation isn't only weak, but they're also as timid as mice. How can they be compared to our Tianhu Empire? Lu Kuan's voice was filled with disdain, arrogance, and provocation. He looked at the Stone Dragon Empire's members like a cat toying with a group of mice. He didn't take them seriously at all. He's too arrogant and insulting. A warrior prefers death to humiliation. Go up and fight him. Does he really think there are no men in our Tianhu Empire? The crowd was boiling with anger. Everyone clenched their fists in indignation. On the city gate tower, all the elders' faces turned ugly. They looked at the younger generation and could only sigh. At this moment, who among the younger generation could contend with Lu Kuan? Our Stone Dragon Empire has been passed down for thousands of years. Every man is an indomitable spirit. How can there be a timid mouse? Below the plaza, a loud shout came out, and a well-built young man whose cultivation had reached the pulse spirit mystery level flew out and punched towards Lu Kuan in the sky, causing quite an extraordinary energy to ripple in the air. Can't even withstand a single blow. A cold smile appeared on Lu Kuan's face. He raised his hand slightly and grabbed downwards. Before the well-built young man could even get close, he was unable to take even half a step forward in the air. After which, his body directly shattered in the air as a bloody mist scattered. Looking at the robust young man who had just pounced out instantly turned into a bloody mist, the entire square trembled. The furious square suddenly fell silent, but everyone's eyes were suddenly filled with a blood-red color. Chi-Chi. Seeing the burly young man turn into a blood mist, many people who had rushed out stopped in the air. They were awakened by the blood mist. This is too much. Do you really think there's no one in our Stone Dragon Empire? The Stone Dragon Empire doesn't lack men. The women of the Stone Dragon Empire aren't inferior to men. On the city gate tower, Ghost Child, Wu Kei, and Guo Xiaofeng's eyes trembled. The blood didn't make them afraid. Instead, it aroused their uncontrollable anger. Their eyes flickered and they stomped their feet on the ground. The three of them flew out from behind Du Xiaofu and pounced towards Lu Kuan. As disciples of the Stone Dragon Empire's royal residents, how could they tolerate someone mocking and provoking the Stone Dragon Empire? Even if they couldn't win, they wouldn't hide behind others. Ghost Child's body was in midair, and as the bright light spread out from his eyes, a gloomy color covered his eyes. He was cold and ghostly. Black, profound energy and runes flashed, and a gloomy, baleful aura directly condensed into a claw that pressed down on Lu Kuan. Wu Kei's graceful body was in the air. She was enchanting. Dazzling runes wrapped around her, and she emitted a ghostly aura. In an instant, an even more shocking aura burst out. A large amount of rune energy suppressed Lu Kuan. The aura was like a rainbow piercing through the sun. The dazzling light bloomed and swept across the sky. Qian Luo sword technique. Guo Xiaofeng swept across the sky and activated the Qian Luo sword. The runes shone brightly and a dazzling mist spread out. His aura suppressed the sky. Accompanied by an unparalleled pressure, the energy of heaven and earth in the surrounding space became chaotic. A large amount of sword shadows crisscrossed. Runes bloomed and danced as if they were going to destroy the universe. The sword shadows were going to pierce through space. All of a sudden, it was like a huge cocoon of sword light that enveloped Lu Kuan. Humph! Faced with the attacks from the three of them, Lu Kuan let out a cold snort from his throat. With a wave of his hand, a vast and mighty symbol directly surfaced in midair. It was as though an enormous energy wave had suddenly been lifted in the midair in front of him. Like a torrential flood, it heavily swept in front of Ghost Child and the other two in an instant. Chi, 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 chi. All the attacks instantly shattered into runes that filled the sky. They were unstoppable. Dazzling energy runes blossomed, and a deep sonic boom suddenly resounded. Ghost Doll and the other two's attacks were directly destroyed. Puff, puff, puff. As the three's attacks collapsed, Ghost Child, Wu Kei, and Guo Xiaofeng seemed to have suffered a heavy blow. They coughed out blood and their faces turned pale. Rumble. Then, the bodies of the three people fell from the sky like birds with broken wings, heavily smashing into the square on the ground, causing the ground to shake and the mountains to shake. As Ghost Child and the other two were blasted out of the square, everyone in the square glared at each other. They clenched their fists and veins popped out on their faces. However, everyone knew that even a complete martial lord realm cultivator could not withstand a single blow from a martial king realm expert, let alone them. They would only be courting death if they went up. Bastard, you're looking down on the Stone Dragon Empire. On the city tower, all the young people's faces turned red and their auras surged. However, no one dared to go up casually. Ghost Child, Wu Kei, and Guo Xiaofeng had joined forces. With their strength, they were able to inflict heavy injuries and survive. If they went up, they would be destroyed like the first person. Sigh. On the city tower, all the old people sighed. At this moment, not to mention the young people, even among the older generation, besides the King Protector and the North Vanquishing Prince, no one could be Lu Kuan's opponent. At this moment, could it be that both the North Vanquishing Prince and the King Protector were allowed to go up? Obviously not. If the North Vanquishing Prince and the King Protector were allowed to go up, not only would the King Protector and the North Vanquishing Prince lose face, but the Stone Dragon Empire's reputation would also be completely destroyed. A war between the two empires would be unavoidable. Ha 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 ha. Is there anyone else who dares to come up? Could it be that only these few people from the Stone Dragon Empire dare to come up? They're all trash and cowards. In the air, Lu Kuan laughed sinisterly as he looked at the countless faces around the Stone Dragon Empire. He glanced at the purple-robed figure on the city tower and then looked down at Ghost Child, Wu Kei, and Guo Xiaofeng who were struggling to get up. The corner of his mouth curved into a cold smile as he said, "Since they're still in the square, I'll kill these three first. Let's see if anyone dares to come up, Kiki." As soon as he finished speaking, Lu Kuan's aura surged and he stared coldly at the three people below. His figure swooped down step by step like a cat about to kill a mouse before it died. He looked at the square with disdain and contempt. He was provoking the entire Stone Dragon Empire. Bastard, let's fight it out with him. At worst, we'll die. Everyone, let's go together. Looking up at the sky, the crowd was stirred up. The onlookers' eyes were bloodshot and their veins were bulging. At the same time, an exceptionally clear voice suddenly resounded in the square. "Lu Kuan, if you dare touch a single hair on their heads, I'll make you pay 100-fold. Try touching them." Chapter 459. The voice was not loud, but at this moment, it resounded through the entire plaza. Instantly, everyone looked towards the source of the voice. In the sky, Lu Kuan also abruptly stopped, then turned around slightly and looked towards the top of the city gate tower. On the ground of the plaza, Ghost Child, Wu Kei and Guo Xiaofeng looked at each other, then raised their heads and looked towards the top of the city gate tower. That voice was naturally extremely familiar to them. On the city gate tower, at this moment, everyone's gazes followed the voice, then all of them suddenly landed on Du Xiaofu. The owner of that voice just now was none other than Du Xiaofu. The North Vanquishing Prince, the Protector King, Xie Fei, First Princess Chang Shengnan, Second Princess Chang Yin, General, Gu Xinyan, Ouyang Qiu and Ouyang Shuang all stared at Du Xiaofu. Du Xiaofu stood up and looked towards the sky, a faint coldness flashing between his brows. Ouyang Shuang looked at Du Xiaofu, then looked at the bloodied Ghost Child trio on the plaza. She seemed to want to say something, but in the end, she did not say anything, only saying to Du Xiaofu, "Be careful." Xiaofu. The North Vanquishing Prince called out to Du Xiaofu. the gaze on his skinny and wrinkled face becoming deep as he stared at Du Xiaofu. But in the end, he did not say anything. Du Xiaofu also did not say anything, the coldness between his brows relaxing. After looking at the north vanquishing prince and Ouyang Shuang with a smile, the profound energy beneath his feet surged, and his figure rose from the ground. Golden, profound energy surged around his body, spreading out his arms like a great rock spreading its wings. Instantly, he swooped down and landed in front of Ghost Child Trio on the plaza. It's the valiant Marquis. That's the valiant Marquis Du Xiaofu. Is he going to make a move? It's said that 2 days ago, the Valor Divine Marquis heavily injured Du Yi from the Du household in 2 moves. If there's anyone in the younger generation in the Empire who can contend against Lu Kuan, then there's only the Valor Divine Marquis. Countless gazes, both inside and outside the square, looked at the purple-robed figure descending from the city tower like a great rock spreading its wings. Immediately, their eyes began to tremble. It's him. Is he going to attack? Although the valiant Marquis Du Xiaofu defeated Du Yi, even the Du household's Du Chong was not a match for him. How could he be a match for him? Above the long tower, the gazes of the people of the Du household and the elders fluctuated. But at this moment, all of them were filled with anticipation. Only the people of the Du household had complicated gazes. Even Big Brother is no match for him. Going up there would only be a disgrace. Behind the Du household's formation, Du Yi, whose face was still deathly pale, looked at the purple-robed figure that had just landed on the square, a cold sneer flashing across his eyes. Chi-Chi. As the figure landed, the golden light was withdrawn. His purple robe fluttered slightly, but not a trace of dust was stirred up. Immediately, a purple-robed young man with a purple broadsword on his back appeared on the square. Are you all right? Du Xiaofu looked at the 3 people in front of him. His gaze slightly moved as he softly said, You clearly know that you are not a match for him, yet you still want to fight. This is not your style. We're fine. Wu Kei slightly nodded as a bitter smile appeared on her face. Ghost Child indifferently smiled as he wiped the blood at the corner of his mouth with his black robe. He looked at Du Xiaofu and softly said, There are some things that are more important than style. For example, dignity, the backbone that a man should have, and the prestige of a nation. TSK, kid. You've finally come out. I knew that you would meddle in other people's business. It seems like these 3 people are very important to you. How about this? You fight with me. If you can defeat me, even if the Stone Dragon Empire wins, I guarantee that I won't touch these 3 people. However, if you don't dare, I guarantee that these 3 people won't be able to leave this square, and you won't be able to escape either. What do you think? As Ghost Child's voice faded, Lu Kuan looked down at Du Xiaofu from the sky and sneered. Back then in the barbaric Beast Mountain range, this kid had ruined his plans. It would be fine if he didn't meet him in this lifetime. After all, with his current talent and strength, as well as his status in the Sky Snake sect, he had long forgotten about this kid in the barbaric Beast Mountain range. After all, in his heart, this kid was like heaven and earth. However, at this moment, he had coincidentally encountered this kid. Naturally, he couldn't let him go. Hearing Lu Kuan's words, Du Xiaofu slightly raised his head and looked at the sky. Golden light began to spread in his eyes. Valor Divine Marquis. Valor Divine Marquis, please fight for your country. Valor Divine Marquis, please fight for your country. Valor Divine Marquis. Valor Divine Marquis. Valor Divine Marquis. Suddenly, shouts resounded from the countless onlookers around the square. All the furious onlookers shifted their gazes to Du Xiaofu. Rather than calling them gazes, it was better to call them hopes. At this moment, everyone's hopes were on Du Xiaofu. The hopes of the country were all placed on him. As the millions of voices in the square soared into the sky, the densely packed crowd on the wide streets outside the square also echoed their shouts. In an instant, the Valor Divine Marquis shouts were more than millions of voices. The sound waves reverberated through the clouds and were deafening. Hearing the deafening shouts from the Valor Divine Marquis, Du Yi and Cheng Chao snorted inwardly. Their gazes were extremely ugly. In the front row of the city gate tower, Cheng Shengnan and Xie Fei's gazes were fixed on the purple-robed figure in the square. TSK, TSK, the crowd is so excited. How lively. Lu Kuan continued to laugh coldly and disdainfully as he looked at the sound wave that soared into the sky below and resounded through the clouds. Brat, make your move. I cannot help but want to see the wonderful expressions on their faces after you are defeated. The hopes of the country are all placed on you. It seems like you have no choice but to make your move. Guo Xiaofeng looked at Du Xiaofu. A few strands of hair by his ear were stained with blood. I don't know what the hopes of the country are. I come from a small border city, so I don't really understand what the prestige of the country is. Du Xiaofu looked at Ghost Child, Guo Xiaofeng, and Wu Kei and said, but that guy touched your dignity, backbone, and prestige of the country, which means that he touched my backbone, dignity, and prestige of the country. Therefore, there's no need to be courteous with him. You guys can leave first. Leave the rest to me. When Ghost Child and the other two heard this, they were stunned for a moment. Then, a smile appeared on their pale faces. He's very strong. You have to be careful. Wu Kei reminded Du Xiaofu. Although the three of them wanted Du Xiaofu to make his move, they knew how ferocious Du Xiaofu was. However, the three of them knew that Lu Kuan, who was in the martial king realm, was an insurmountable mountain and barrier for the younger generation. How could it be easy to deal with Lu Kuan? I'm ranked first on the martial ranking. Do you guys think that Tianwu Academy can't be compared to the Tianhu Empire or the Sky Serpent sect? Du Xiaofu looked at Wu Kei and the other two and smiled. Of course not. Don't embarrass Tianwu Academy. Guo Xiaofeng looked at Du Xiaofu and added, it's fine as long as it's a draw. If it's a draw, it's considered a win. When he finished speaking, the three of them immediately left the stage with grave expressions on their faces. As the three of them left the stage, Du Xiaofu's gaze flickered. His purple robe shook and his figure soared into the sky. He instantly floated in the air and stood there. When Du Xiaofu's figure landed in the sky, the thunderous commotion in the surroundings suddenly quieted down. Numerous gazes anxiously landed on the youth with a broadsword on his back. Is the valiant Marquis going to make his move? On the city tower, many gazes were filled with nervousness. As expected, you still love to meddle in other people's business. What a pity. This time, you're going to pay the price. Lu Kuan looked at Du Xiaofu. Compared to the past, the youth before him was less immature and more mature. Lu Kuan seemed to be more resolute and determined. However, Lu Kuan was able to recognize him with a single glance. Du Xiaofu looked at Lu Kuan, but there was a hint of calmness in his sharp gaze. He said softly, back then, you fled like a stray dog. I wonder if you were captured by the profound talisman sect and the profound underworld sect. You must have had a hard time escaping. It seems like the two of them know each other. Many people on the city tower looked at the conversation between the two of them in the sky with puzzlement. Based on their conversation, it seemed like they were entangled with the profound talisman sect and the profound underworld sect. This brat seems to have many secrets. The North vanquishing prince looked at the sky and muttered, Shaoqing, how confident do you think Du Xiaofu is? In the front row of the city tower, Du Xiaoyao stood on Du Xiaoqing's shoulder and said softly. Du Xiaoyao could feel that Lu Kuan was very strong. He wasn't just strong. Big Brother will definitely win. Du Xiaoqing's delicate red lips parted slightly. Although there was some worry in her eyes, she was very confident in her brother. As Du Xiaofu's voice sounded, Lu Kuan's disdainful and contemptuous face immediately turned ugly. However, a sneer appeared on his face again. It was filled with ridicule and disdain as he said coldly, Who do you think you are in front of me? You will soon pay the price for these words. You are not qualified. Back then, someone from the Sky Serpent sect acted arrogantly in front of me. Your outcome will be the same as his. A smile appeared on Du Xiaofu's face. However, the coldness in his eyes became increasingly sharp and terrifying. You are courting death. Lu Kuan finally couldn't bear it anymore. With his current cultivation and talent, how could he tolerate a brat's impudence and ridicule in front of him? He could ridicule others, but he absolutely couldn't allow anyone to look down on him. Chi. Lu Kuan clenched his fist. His long robe fluttered as runes wrapped around him. A vast and mighty cold aura surged like a giant wave. In the sky, the wind and clouds suddenly surged. Lu Kuan's eyes instantly turned cold. Killing intent surged in his eyes as he looked straight at Du Xiaofu and sneered, "Today, I will let you know that you can't even withstand a single blow from me. You no longer have the qualifications to be arrogant." Chapter 460. Boom. A sinister aura surged and swept out. Finally, it condensed into a deep black handprint, accompanied by a sinister, baleful aura. It was as if dark clouds covered the sky. Talisman runes spread out. Finally, the black handprint transformed into a huge black snake. The huge black snake was like a living creature, its aura suffocating the heavens and earth. Lu Kuan activated it, and with a rumbling sound, it pressed down on Du Xiaofu with lightning speed. Hiss hiss! The giant black snake was like a black dragon circling in the air. The pressure it exuded was enough to make one's heart tremble. Terrifying energy filled the air. Wherever it passed, the surrounding space would be distorted, revealing a long vacuum mark. The surroundings faintly revealed a deep black light, as if the entire space would explode at any moment. Compared to the power he used to deal with Du Cheng earlier, the power that Lu Kuan activated at this moment was not weak. At this moment, the suffocating aura that suffocated the heavens and earth from the huge black snake made the hearts of the countless onlookers in the square fly out of their bodies. But at this moment, all the gazes in the square were forced to look at the sky. Their eyes were blood red, and they clenched their fists, hoping for a miracle. Valor Divine Marquis, you must resist. The last hope, Valor Divine Marquis, rise up. For the Stone Dragon Empire, resist. Valor Divine Marquis, I beg you, resist. At this moment, inside and outside the square, countless gazes were looking at the sky, their hearts silently praying for a miracle. Under such circumstances, everyone could only hope for a miracle, because they all knew that even the Valor Divine Marquis would not be able to resist Lu Kuan. Kid, can you surprise me again? On the city tower, the North Vanquishing Prince looked at the huge black snake that Lu Kuan had condensed with lightning speed with a grave expression. That terrifying aura made him realize that no one below the Martial King realm could resist it. What a terrifying attack! Can he resist it? On the city tower, the hearts of the elders from the various Duke palaces were in their throats. Even the people from the Du household had tense expressions. In the face of Lu Kuan's terrifying strength, the giant black snake suppressed the sky and everything. It was unparalleled. The only thing everyone could do now was to place their hopes on the valiant Marquis Du Xiaofu. The giant black snake suppressed the sky and quickly appeared in front of Du Xiaofu. It seemed that it was going to crush Du Xiaofu into pieces. A fanatical disdain and killing intent surged in Lu Kuan's eyes. In his eyes, the purple-robed brat in front of him was already a dead man. In less than 2 years, he was able to reach the initial stage of Martial King because he had awakened his ancestors' bloodline, received the inheritance of the Sky Snake sex experts, and received all kinds of incredible benefits from the Sky Snake Munchu. Could this brat in front of him be even stronger than him? That was absolutely impossible. Brat, go to hell. Let them see their hope. You can't even withstand a single blow and are the same as trash. Lu Kuan's killing intent spread out, chilling to the bone. At this moment, countless gazes both inside and outside the square froze as they stared intently. At this moment, when the terrifying giant black snake appeared in front of Du Xiaofu like a giant black dragon, its sharp and terrifying eyes looked down on Du Xiaofu like a living creature. Du Xiaofu finally moved. Under the attentive gazes of countless people, Du Xiaofu formed a seal with his hands. Suddenly, a mysterious aura spread out from his body. Within his eyes, a strange and mysterious rune suddenly spread out. An extremely shocking energy swept out from his body, shaking the souls of people. Chi-Chi. At this moment, it was as if there were rays of light shooting out from Du Xiaofu's eyes. The mysterious runes in his eyes overlapped with each other, and finally enveloped the giant black snake in front of him. At this moment, on the city gate tower, The North vanquishing prince and the protector king felt the aura from Du Xiaofu's body and revealed a surprised expression. Their nervous eyes trembled, as if they had suddenly seen some kind of hope in this illusory expectation. Unknowingly, the two of them clenched their hands into fists. At this moment, for some unknown reason, the giant black snake in the sky that was suffocating the heavens and the earth suddenly became lifeless, as if it had been frozen the moment the light from Du Xiaofu's eyes shone on it. Crack, crack. Then, the terrifying giant black snake disintegrated inch by inch under the stunned and shocked gazes of everyone below. Du Xiaofu's figure appeared in front of Lu Kuan. For some unknown reason, the gaze in Lu Kuan's eyes had also become lifeless, just like the giant black snake. On the other hand, the mysterious runes in Du Xiaofu's eyes disappeared, and the terrifying aura on his body also disappeared. However, in this short period of time, a tyrannical and terrifying aura erupted from Du Xiaofu's body like a flash flood. The golden light around his body soared into the sky, and within the golden light, there seemed to be a golden-winged rock flapping its wings as it flew out. The faintly discernible golden-winged rock image enveloped Du Xiaofu, as if Du Xiaofu's body was about to transform into a golden-winged rock. Boom! A fist imprint exploded. It was as powerful as thunder and as fast as lightning. Just as Lu Kuan's lifeless eyes had yet to react, Du Xiaofu's fist had already landed on his chest. Pucci. At this moment, under the stupefaction, Lu Kuan's martial king body was like a target. He was unable to withstand Du Xiaofu's punch, and immediately, blood spurted out from his mouth. As the blood spurted out, Lu Kuan's face suddenly turned deathly pale. The lifeless gaze in his eyes finally began to return to normal, but he still seemed to be in a daze. Walala! Almost at the same time, the giant black snake also completely disintegrated. Dazzling runes bloomed, sweeping out in a mighty manner. In a short moment, it silently disappeared. Gugu. In a short moment, everything happened in a short moment. When they saw the scene in front of them and looked at the rune energy that exploded in the sky, countless people fiercely sucked in a breath of cold air. No one would have thought that the giant black snake that could suppress everything, the terrifying attack that even Du Xiaofu at his peak, would be completely useless in front of Du Xiaofu. It couldn't even suppress the corner of Du Xiaofu's clothes. Instead, it was injured by Du Xiaofu's punch. Immediately, all the onlookers, both inside and outside the square below, seemed to have suddenly quivered. The depths of their souls also trembled, and their gazes suddenly fluctuated with shock, and the blood in their bodies began to surge. Boom! Suddenly, the entire sky shook with a loud bang. A ray of azure gold light erupted from Du Xiaofu's hand, and the energy of heaven and earth immediately surged and gathered. The azure gold light converged, and a completely azure gold longsword appeared. A domineering and fierce aura filled the air, and a clanging sound rang out. The azure gold longsword seemed simple, but it was actually extremely agile. The arc of the sword's edge was elegant, and the azure gold light shone brightly. The runes flowed, and it was completely natural. Whoosh! Without any delay, Du Xiaofu slashed out with his sword. It seemed like a simple slash, but the sound of wind and thunder suddenly resounded within the long sword. The azure gold brilliance shone brightly, and it seemed like it wanted to drown Du Xiaofu. The sword light spread out like lightning in front of Lu Kuan. Buzz! The simple sword seemed to contain the power to move mountains and overturn seas. It was enough to shake mountains and rivers, collapse mountains and crack the earth, and destroy everything. Chi-la-la, wherever the sword light passed, a long crack appeared on the ground below. It was like an earthquake, and it was terrifying. Chi. Lu Kuan came back to his senses, and his expression changed greatly. He quickly retreated, and the runes around his body erupted in panic. It was unknown what kind of strange movement martial skill he had used, but his figure actually dodged the sword light at an incredible angle. However, at this moment, everyone could see that Lu Kuan was seriously injured, and for some reason, his reaction was much slower. The strength and speed he had used in a panic was also greatly reduced, and it was far from his initial peak state. Tyrannical shadow transformation. Just as Lu Kuan's figure flashed out, a sneer appeared on Du Xiaofu's face. Layers of light bloomed on the azure gold longsword in his hand, and the sword blade turned into layers of chain horns, with dazzling azure gold talisman runes blooming, like the golden feathers of a golden-winged rock. The aura was also domineering and terrifying, and the brilliance poured down. The chain horns seemed to be separated, but in fact, they were tightly connected, and instantly turned into an azure gold sword whip. Chi-la-la, the azure gold sword whip changed, like a spirit python attacking, a flood dragon soaring into the sky, and a great rock shaking the sky. Whoosh! Du Xiaofu waved his hand, and the azure gold sword whip swept out fiercely. It was agile and charming, and was dazzling. It also swept towards Lu Kuan's chest at an incredible angle. Lu Kuan's eyes were filled with shock, and he quickly dodged, but he avoided his chest, and the terrifying and agile sword whip directly slashed across his shoulder, like a reverse hook. The sword whip spun around and fiercely wrapped around Lu Kuan's left shoulder, but was blocked by the black and evil profound energy halo around Lu Kuan's body. Boom! At the same time, Du Xiaofu raised his head slightly. Golden light surged within his eyes, sharp and terrifying. With a shake of his hand seals, talisman markings flowed, and multicolored light flickered. The golden talisman markings on his body were dazzling like a rising sun, and an overbearing and fierce aura suddenly intensified and swept out. The pair of talisman markings on his back flapped, and flowing light overflowed and suffused the air. He was like a rock flapping its wings and soaring into the 9 heavens. Swish! Above the azure gold sword whip, a vast and mighty pressure intensified, channeling the energy of heaven and earth and spiraling like a flood dragon. Crack, crack! Finally, the azure gold sword whip directly destroyed the black profound energy halo around Lu Kuan, who was greatly affected at this moment. The sword whip swept past, and then neatly cut off one of Lu Kuan's left arms. Poochie! Lu Kuan's severed arm was dripping with blood. A large amount of blood mist poured into the air, and the blood at the corner of his mouth was also wildly spurting out. Chi-chi-chi-chi. The azure gold long whip was enchanting. In the end, it spun around and once again transformed into a natural, simple, and elegant azure gold long sword. Ah, in the sky, a miserable wail came out from Lu Kuan's mouth. The pain of losing an arm was heart-wrenching, and his face immediately turned as pale as ash. Divine Valor Marquis, invincible. At this moment, inside and outside the plaza, countless gazes trembled, their bodies trembled, and some people's eyes were filled with tears. One after another, trembling shouts resounded throughout the plaza and rushed into the clouds of the imperial capital. Xiao Yu really wrote this chapter twice. After he finished the first time and read it again, everything was within his expectations. Although it was a little hot-blooded, he felt that something was missing. So, he gritted his teeth and decided to rewrite everything. I hope that all my readers can see the surprise in this chapter and see that Xiao Yu has been working hard all this time. Finally, I ask all the book brothers to continue to take care of me. Flowers, recommendation tickets, and so on, they are all love. Even a cup of coffee is excellent. Chapter 461. Damn it! Within the Tianhu Empire, 2 gloomy loud cries suddenly rang out amidst the similarly shocked gazes. The 2 old men, Jing Yu and Ming Hu, were the first to recover from Lu Kuan's miserable shriek. Their gazes and expressions changed drastically as the 2 figures suddenly pounced towards Du Xiaofu with lightning-like speed. To Jingyue and Minghu, nothing must happen to Lu Kuan. He was the hope of the entire Tianhu Empire and an important direct disciple of the Sky Serpent sect. If anything happened to Lu Kuan during this trip to the Stone Dragon Empire, even though they were ranked within the top 10 in the Tianhu Empire, they couldn't compare to Lu Kuan. Therefore, when they heard Lu Kuan's miserable shriek, how could they endure it? The 2 figures pounced towards Du Xiaofu like lightning. Jingyue and Minghu, what are you trying to do? At almost the same time, the North Vanquishing King, who had been staring at the plaza, let out a loud shout. An astonishing cold aura erupted from his seemingly skinny body as his figure shot out like lightning. Jingyue and Minghu, how dare you interfere in a fight between the younger generation? The Protector King shouted. As his voice rang out, a rune light shot out and an enormous pressure suddenly surged out. His figure also quickly disappeared from the city tower. Chi chi chi. The four of them attacked as fast as lightning. The four figures immediately collided in the air. For waves of energy surged and the rune shattered, causing a large area of space to tremble. The vast and mighty power caused everyone to tremble violently. The four figures immediately separated upon contact. They were Jingyue, Minghu, the North Vanquishing King, and the Protector King. Looking at the North Vanquishing King and the Protector King in front of them, Jingyue and Minghu's faces were gloomy and ugly. Looking at the miserable Lu Kuan not far in front of them, their eyes even twitched. Even if they were beaten to death, they would never have imagined that Lu Kuan would suffer such a great injury at the hands of the purple-robed youth. What are you trying to do? Are you trying to interfere? The North Vanquishing King stared at the Mirror Moon and Minghu duo as a cold aura spread out from his body. A bone-chilling pressure also spread out, causing the surrounding air to be faintly covered in frost, causing people to shiver. Jingyu looked gloomy. Her clothes were fluttering in the wind. She looked embarrassed and said to North Shenwang, "Gentlemen, we don't want to get involved." This time, the competition between the young cultivators of the Tianhu Empire and the Stone Dragon Empire has already ended. It's between the young cultivators of the Tianhu Empire and the Stone Dragon Empire. That's enough. North Vanquishing Prince sneered. Jingyue's words made it clear that the war between the two empires had already ended, and the Tianhu Empire had won. Therefore, even if Du Xiaofu defeated Lu Kuan, it would only be a matter of the younger generation. Even if Lu Kuan lost, the Stone Dragon Empire would still lose 10 prefectures. North Vanquishing King's voice paused for a moment. An icy aura surged in his eyes as he looked at the black-haired elder, Jingyu, and coldly said, "Since you said it's between the young cultivators, then let's end it according to the young cultivators' method. As long as you're still in the square, you're responsible for your own life and death. No one is allowed to interfere." Yu Jingyu's expression immediately turned gloomy. Being responsible for their own life and death was what the fourth Lu Kuan had said earlier. Lu Kuan's miserable wails gradually stopped at this moment. His face was deathly pale, and his eyes were bloodshot as he gloomily stared at Du Xiaofu. It was as if he was an injured poisonous snake staring at the hunter who had injured him. He was extremely resentful. At this moment, how could Lu Kuan believe that Du Xiaofu was actually able to injure him? The young man from the Savage Beast mountain range had actually surpassed him. In just one exchange, he was able to injure him. Only Lu Kuan himself knew all of this. All of this was caused by the huge energy impact from Du Xiaofu's eyes, which had directly injured his soul. That frightening spiritual strength was extremely frightening. However, that was also due to his carelessness. If he wasn't careless, that frightening spiritual strength would at the very most destroy his attack and would not be able to injure him. Even if it could injure him, it would absolutely not be able to cause him to be so severely injured. Chi chi. In a short period of time, Lu Kuan's shoulder, which was bleeding from his severed arm, was wrapped in a sinister black Xian Qi. The bloodstain began to dry up. Then, he glanced sideways at the two people from Mirror Moon and Minghu and said, "You two, I haven't lost yet. You can leave now." Minghu was in a difficult position. Obviously, he didn't dare to let LV Kuan take the risk. Lu Kuan's face began to turn gloomy. He looked at Minghu and Mirror Moon and shouted, "I told you to leave. Can't you hear me? I'll say it again. I haven't lost yet." The two people from Mirror Moon and Minghu looked at Lu Kuan, then looked at Du Xiaofu, who was holding the azure gold longsword in his hand. There was a hint of greed on the azure gold longsword. It was obviously an extremely extraordinary Dao artifact. Compared to the Rock Dragon Wind and Lightning Sword and the Green Sun Boundless Sword, it was many times more powerful. However, at this moment, the aura from the purple-robed young man, Du Xiaofu, wasn't as strong as before. This caused Mirror Moon and Minghu to have doubts in their hearts. "All right, then be careful." Mirror Moon and Ming, who looked at each other. They both secretly swept their gazes across the people from the Tianhu Empire. Then, they gritted their teeth and nodded. Their figures began to retreat. Mirror Moon and Ming also hoped that LV Kuan could take this opportunity to eliminate the purple-robed young man. They could also see that LV Kuan was too careless previously. If they could eliminate the purple-robed young man now, it could be considered as destroying the Stone Dragon Empire's hope. Otherwise, if this extraordinary purple-robed young man was allowed to grow, he might really become a pillar of the Stone Dragon Empire in the future. At that time, it would be even more difficult for the Tianhu Empire to deal with the Stone Dragon Empire. Investigating the situation of the Stone Dragon Empire was also one of their true goals this time. Xiaofu, if that's the case, then you don't have to be polite. You are responsible for your own life and death. Be careful. North Vanquishing Monarch said to Du Xiaofu, who wasn't far away. Everyone could understand the meaning behind his words. Although it seemed like he was telling Du Xiaofu to be careful, it also meant that North Vanquishing Monarch was angry. Even if Du Xiaofu could kill LV Kuan now, if he could seize the opportunity to kill the Martial King of the Stone Dragon Empire, 10 mansions would be absolutely worth it. Whoosh whoosh. North Vanquishing Monarch's figure flew back as soon as he finished speaking. His body was surrounded by multicolored light as he looked at Du Xiaofu. Faint lightning flickered in his eyes, but he didn't say anything as he retreated with North Vanquishing Monarch. Buzz. In the air, Du Xiaofu was holding the tyrannical shadow in his hand. The azure gold runes shone brightly as if they were formed by nature. It was as if they were suppressing a volcanic energy. It had the power to move mountains and seas. It was enough to shake mountains and rivers and destroy everything in its path. Good, very good. I didn't expect you to grow to such a level. LV Kuan sneered as he looked at Du Xiaofu with a cold gaze. His pale face was ashen as a black evil aura gradually rose. As this evil aura rose, the withered aura on his body also strangely strengthened. Crackle. Along with the fluctuation of the evil aura, deep and faint talisman runes spread on the surface of Lu Kuan's body, as if they were climbing out from the depths of his body. Suddenly, an extraordinary fluctuation appeared in this space of the sky. In an instant, with LV Kuan as the center, the surrounding space began to distort. It was as if a spatial barrier had rippled. In just a moment, a large area of space was distorted into a strange arc. A monstrous cold aura also completely erupted. At this moment, Du Xiaofu's expression changed when he sensed the erupting and spreading dark and cold aura. Even though he was quite a distance away, Du Xiaofu was still able to feel the terrifying feeling brought about by the dark and evil aura. The dark and cold aura spread, causing the blood in one's body to stiffen and numb one's soul. Even one's body began to freeze and stiffen. What kind of aura is this? It's too terrifying. Around the square, countless gazes were trembling. The evil aura was too terrifying. It was as if the gate to the depths of hell had been opened. That aura was difficult to resist. Hula. At this moment, LV Kuan stood in the sky. His venomous snake-like eyes were currently suffused with a deep and faint color. They released a grand glow and were covered with blood, causing him to look exceptionally strange. Even LV Kuan's entire body had begun to turn sinister at this moment. A faint glow covered his entire body. Even the black veins on his face bulged, as if they were about to break through his skin. Talisman runes crisscrossed the surface of his body, appearing as if they were covered with black blood. Together with his pale and sinister face, he looked just like an evil ghost. Crackle. At this moment, the wound on LV Kuan's broken arm was hideous. However, under countless shocked gazes, a grand glow actually began to spread. Light flickered on the broken arm. In the end, an arm that was covered in a faint glow appeared out of nowhere. The broken arm from before had actually recovered to its original state. Oh my God! Gulp gulp. At this moment, countless gazes around the square were shocked. All of them sucked in a breath of cold air. A faint, enormous pressure came from the depths of one's blood and soul, causing one's heart to tremble for no reason and wanting to crawl. Buzz. Du Xiaofu moved. His figure was as ethereal as a god. His entire body was wrapped in a golden light as he appeared in front of LV Kuan like a ghost. Sword light erupted as his sword swept down, as if it was tearing through space. Immediately, it once again chopped down on LV Kuan's newly grown arm. Crackle! As the sword light swept past, the tyrant shadow released its pressure and channeled the energy of heaven and earth. It was tyrannical and destroyed everything. It destroyed the rune light defense on LV Kuan's arm and directly cut off LV Kuan's newly grown arm from the shoulder. TSK, a Tao artifact in your hands is still unable to unleash its full power. I am a human king. My bloodline is undying, and I have awakened the undying martial vein. Brat, you are no longer my match. LV Kuan's sinister and ear-piercing voice sounded out. Under the broken arm, the other arm trembled. A palm print was like lightning as it directly slapped onto Du Xiaofu's body. Chapter 462. Bam! A low and heavy muffled sound resounded from Du Xiaofu's chest, and the light golden profound energy defense around his body was instantly smashed into pieces by Lu Kuan's palm. A terrifying and enormous force swept out, and then Du Xiaofu's figure directly fell from midair. Whoosh! At the same time. When Du Xiaofu's body fell, the aura of the Meridian Spirit Realm Nirvana Realm was pushed to the extreme. The tyrant shadow in his hand instantly turned into a green-golden sword whip separated from the body of the sword. It was domineering and agile, ancient and demonic as it strangely pierced towards Lu Kuan's chest. Whoosh! Lu Kuan avoided the vital part of his chest, as if he did not dare to directly take the attack on his internal organs. However, he allowed the sword whip to pierce through his shoulder. A bloody hole appeared, and the sword whip was retracted. However, there was not much blood flowing out from the bloody hole. A bright light spread and the bloody hole was instantly healed. Even the place where the arm was cut off just now grew a new arm. It was as good as new. Bam! Du Xiaofu's body fell heavily to the ground, causing the earth to shake and large cracks to appear on the ground. Has the Valor Marquis lost? Everyone's eyes trembled. Previously, Du Chong had lost the ability to continue fighting after being blasted to the ground. Would the Valor Marquis be the same for Du Xiaofu now? Under everyone's gaze, Du Xiaofu crawled up from the cracks on the ground. His face was pale and under everyone's worried gaze, he spat out a mouthful of faint golden blood. He stood up. Well done, Valor Marquis. Valor Marquis, continue to resist. The spectators around the square were all worried when they saw this scene. They all clenched their fists and trembled under the evil pressure. The Nirvana realm of the Meridian Spirit Realm. This guy's true cultivation level is only at the Nirvana realm of the Meridian Spirit Realm. At this moment, the people on the tower had finally confirmed Du Xiaofu's true level of cultivation, and all of them were shocked once more. Du Xiaofu was only at the Nirvana realm of the Pulse Spirit Realm. He had not even reached the initial stage of the Martial Lord Realm. Yet, he was able to contend with Lu Kuan at the Nirvana realm of the Pulse Spirit Realm. This was already a deep shock to everyone present. On the city tower, Jingyue, Minghu, and the others from the Tianhu Empire smiled coldly. Is this the terrifying aspect of a human king's talent? When the Stone Dragon Empire's people saw Lu Kuan's strange and shocking aura, they couldn't help but feel a strange pressure that made even the old men want to prostrate themselves. The expressions of the Stone Dragon Empire's people on the city walls were all grave. Du Xiaofu, who was only at the Meridian Spirit Realm, naturally had some special abilities. However, could he really contend against Lu Kuan, who was at the Martial King Realm? Even if Lu Kuan had been unexpectedly injured, he was still at the Martial King Realm. Du Xiaofu looked at the sky and wiped the blood from the corner of his mouth. At this moment, Lu Kuan, who was in the sky, was like an evil ghost. The aura that spread out from his body was terrifying. The pressure that spread out made people want to prostrate themselves on the ground. The immortal martial vein. Although the immortal martial vein in that brat's body is very complicated, it is still the immortal martial vein. Although it can't be compared to the true immortal martial vein, it is still enough for him to have the talent of a human king. At this moment, Zhen Xingchuan's voice once again entered Du Xiaofu's ears. His voice was filled with surprise. Brother Qingchun, is this strange and evil thing the immortal martial vein? Du Xiaofu asked softly. Don't make a sound. There are experts hidden in the Tianhu Empire. Just now, when I borrowed your body with the power of my primordial spirit, it almost attracted their attention. Now, you can only rely on yourself. Although this brat has the immortal martial vein, it is still far from being comparable to the true immortal martial vein. The true immortal martial vein is an innate supreme body. It is said that only those big clans have it. This brat is still far from it. Jin Qingchuan's voice continued to enter Du Xiaofu's ears. This fellow has already been severely injured and is greatly affected. He is unable to display the strength of a martial king realm sovereign personage. However, this immortal martial vein can be said to be immortal. It is too difficult to deal with it with your current strength. You can't use the full power of your peak Dao artifact. If you don't injure his vital points, it won't have much effect on the immortal martial vein. Instead, it will consume a lot of your energy. You have to think of a way to deal with it. It would be best if you can suppress it. This immortal martial vein is very complicated, so its vital points are its weak points. Think of a way to deal with its weak points. Du Xiaofu's eyes moved as he stared at the sky. His previous attack could directly affect Lu Kuan's soul because of the power of Jian Qingchuan's primordial spirit. Using the power of Jian Qingchuan's primordial spirit to activate a kind of soul attack of a talisman master had almost attracted attention. If Jin Qingchun were to help at this moment, he was afraid that the existence of Jian Qingchuan's primordial spirit would be directly exposed. The consequences would be more or less troublesome. Brat, prepare to die. Lu Kuan's ferocious face was ashen. His eerie and strange eyes were filled with resentment and malice. It was accompanied by a monstrous evil aura that made people's blood freeze, their bodies stiffen, and their souls become sluggish. His body swooped down, and a black palm print spread out, diving and collapsing towards Du Xiaofu. Oh! Du Xiaofu withdrew the tyrannical shadow from his hand into his body, and the purple broadsword on his back was also unsheathed and inserted into the ground beside him. The cracked ground of the square beneath his feet constantly shook violently. Then, a loud shout came from his mouth, like a dragon's roar and a divine elephant's cry. Suddenly, his aura was incomparably domineering. Looking down on all living things, boom! Amidst the domineering and surging aura, the mysterious runes on Du Xiaofu's body released ripples. With the sound of wind and thunder, they turned into a palm print, accompanied by an imperceptible trajectory and rune ripples. Finally, like a collision of meteorites, it fiercely charged upwards and collided with Lu Kuan's palm print. Such a collision instantly caused the space to be oppressed and distorted together. A huge boom resounded through the space like thunder. Rumble. Turbulent energy ripples spread out, causing the entire surrounding space to tremble rapidly. The ground of the plaza, which had long been cracked, intensified at this moment. Many of the walls of the plaza on top of the city towers in the distance were the first to tilt and collapse, accompanied by a rumbling sound that sounded like a landslide. Crack, crack. Soon after, the streets in the distance also began to crack. The terrifying energy spread out, causing one's mind to tremble in fear, as if a disaster had arrived. The terrifying storm of runes immediately swept out like a hurricane. However, when the storm of runes reached a certain range, it came to a sudden stop and gradually disappeared. What terrifying strength! Inside and outside the square, on the city towers, countless gazes looked at each other, all of them deeply shocked. Oomph! As the energy spread out, Du Xiaofu's figure trembled and was immediately forced back. His feet sank deep into the ground of the stone square, and a muffled groan came from his throat. At the same time, faint golden blood flowed out from the corner of his mouth. Even the aura around his body was shaken into chaos. Lu Kuan's figure was forced back. He had also been greatly affected by Du Xiaofu's punch. Shock flashed through his ferocious eyes, and then he became even more resentful. If he hadn't been seriously injured, Du Xiaofu wouldn't have been able to resist him, no matter how strong he was. Let's see how many times you can resist. You're an arrow at the end of its flight. Lu Kuan sneered. His figure swept through the air, overflowing with evil, and he once again charged towards Du Xiaofu. The golden brilliance in Du Xiaofu's eyes spread, and the golden light soared into the sky like a rising sun. A pair of golden talisman inscriptions suddenly stretched out, and his body flipped over the rocks on the ground as he soared into the sky. Stepping in midair, the wings on his back overflowed with flowing light. The light illuminated the sky and was able to directly sweep away the evil aura that Lu Kuan had covered in midair. Qi. A golden light gushed out, and a tyrannical and ferocious aura suddenly spread out from Du Xiaofu's body. In an instant, Du Xiaofu's hand also slapped out fiercely to meet the attack. Along with the flickering and condensing of layers of faint golden talisman runes, like the golden wings of a golden-winged rock, golden light erupted and illuminated the sky. Boom! A low muffled sound was heard again. Amidst the overflowing evil aura, the golden rune patterns around Du Xiaofu's hand were in a stalemate with the evil and strange rune patterns for a while. Then they were immediately shattered by the evil rune patterns in the other party's palm. Puqi. A huge force surged, and the surging evil aura made Du Xiaofu, who was at the pulse spirit realm, unable to completely withstand it even though he had used the aura of the golden-winged rock to resist more than half of it. He opened his mouth and spat out a mouthful of blood. Qi-la. Du Xiaofu's body was once again blasted back by a surge of terrifying force. He flew fiercely and collided with a broken city wall not far away. Suddenly, a thunderous explosion resounded in the square. Countless pieces of gravel shot out from the dust and splashed in all directions, causing a scene of shock and chaos. The terrifying force also destroyed the city walls. Bang! Du Xiaofu once again landed on the cracked ground of the square, causing the ground to shake. The city wall behind him collapsed, and a large amount of gravel immediately covered him. In the end, he is still unable to contend against me. How strong can he be? On the city wall, under the worried and serious gazes of the Du family, Dewey secretly wiped away a sinister look. It's best if he is killed. The 10 prefectures of my empire are nothing. In the front row, a cold smile appeared on Cheng Chao's face, and his eyes were filled with a vicious chill. Chapter 463. At this moment, Ouyang Shuang, CFA, Second Princess Cheng Yin, and the others in the front row all had worried and grave expressions. First Princess Cheng Xingnan was also frowning with worry in her eyes. Her delicate hands tightly gripped the armrest of her chair as she muttered, "Shameless fellow, you have to fight back. At most, I'll forgive you for what happened in the past." Du Xiaoqing was also frowning as she sat on her chair. Her gaze was fixed on the pile of rubble in the dusty plaza. Don't worry, he won't be defeated so easily. Although worry appeared in Little Demon Du's pale golden spirit pupils, at this moment, she was full of confidence that Du Xiaofu would be able to take down the trading company. Among the crowd in the plaza, there was also a sinister gaze staring at the pile of rubble. It was Li Yu of the Li family. After Du Xiaofu became the Valor Divine Marquis, he had close relationships with the various duke palaces and was extremely powerful himself. Li Yu had been unable to sleep for the past few days. He was afraid that the Valor Divine Marquis Du Xiaofu would think of him at any time to settle the score. At that time, the entire Li family would not be able to protect him. At this moment, seeing this scene, Li Yu did not care about the prestige of the empire. His life was the most important thing. To Li Yu, only if Du Xiaofu was directly beaten to death or crippled would he be able to be at ease in the future. Otherwise, he would be unable to sleep every day and night in the future. He would be unable to sit still and be on tenterhooks. Valor Divine Marquis, stand up and give us a miracle. Valor Divine Marquis, stand up again. We support you. Please give us a miracle. The gazes of the spectators in the plaza all looked at the pile of rubble. Low voices of anticipation spread as all of them prayed in their hearts. Everyone knew that if Du Xiaofu was defeated, there would be no one in the younger generation in the empire who could fight against the terrifying Lu Kuan. Is this kid really going to create a miracle? On the city tower, the North Vanquishing Prince's nervous eyes suddenly narrowed as he looked at the pile of rubble below. Ripples appeared on his skinny and wrinkled face. Then, under countless gazes, the pile of rubble shook and a figure faintly appeared from within the dust. In the sky, Lu Kuan floated in midair. His face immediately twitched, becoming increasingly gloomy and ugly. When he saw the figure that had appeared once again within the rubble and dust, a dark and cold chill rose on his sinister and terrifying face. In the plaza, a purple-robed figure slowly walked, blood dripped from his mouth. His body was covered in a faint golden light. Golden talisman rune lights covered his body. Golden talisman. Mysterious golden talisman runic patterns as coverts. When the purple-robed figure was clearly seen, the temperature in the plaza all rose for no reason. Who else could that figure be other than the divine valor Marquis Du Xiaofu? When Du Xiaofu's figure appeared, he wiped the blood from his mouth. Suddenly, he stomped his foot on the ground, causing rubble to shoot out. The talisman wings on his back once again condensed and shook, emitting a domineering and terrifying aura. He instantly stepped into the air and once again hovered in the air. Divine valor Marquis. At this moment, countless loud shouts and cheers came from the bottom of their hearts. TSK, an undying cockroach. It's a pity that you can't change the result. Lu Kuan sneered. He had activated his undying martial veins several times, but he was still unable to suppress Du Xiaofu. On his hideous face, the chilling, killing intent in his terrifying eyes had reached its peak. With a wave of his hand, the evil aura that filled the sky condensed. Mysterious talisman runes flickered, and his hideous body was like an evil ghost that instantly swept towards Du Xiaofu. The evil aura that filled the sky covered the sky and the earth, causing the surroundings to tremble. The pressure of a human king filled the sky, and it wasn't something that an ordinary person could withstand. It caused the profound energy within a person's body to freeze and the soul to become sluggish. Qi. Looking at the sky, the corner of Du Xiaofu's mouth dripped with blood. His aura suddenly became overbearing. Flowing light overflowed and filled the air. His wings were like the wings of a rock, soaring through the 9 heavens, resisting the enormous pressure of a human king from Lu Kuan. Seeming to have felt the aura from Du Xiaofu's body, Lu Kuan's gaze flickered. This aura seemed to be related to the terrifying golden-winged rock in the barbaric Beast Mountain range. At that time, he had even obtained the feathers of the golden-winged rock and the purple flame demonic phoenix. It seems that you also obtained great benefits in the barbaric Beast Mountain range. But now, you can't change the result. Die. Lu Kuan sneered, and a fist instantly rushed out. The fist was wrapped in mysterious talisman runes, overflowing with evil aura, and was suppressed by the undying martial vein. A deep and terrifying light bloomed like a demon, bombarding and suppressing Du Xiaofu. It was so fast that there was no way to dodge. Boom! The surrounding space above the square trembled. Lu Kuan's fist directly blasted out. Although it was simple and direct, the mysterious talisman runes on the fist dimmed and became brilliant. The dark light released became deep and overflowing with evil aura. This was because the communication involved the undying martial vein. At this moment, Lu Kuan had already activated his absolute killing intent. He activated the pressure of a human king from the undying martial vein, wanting to directly kill Du Xiaofu. Divine valor Marquis. Everyone's body trembled as they looked up at the sky. They clenched their fists, and their eyes were scarlet red as they stared intently. Rock descends to the 9th heaven. Suppress. Du Xiaofu flapped his wings again, and the talisman wings on his back opened and closed. Golden light bloomed and filled the sky. It was as if a real golden-winged rock had descended, carrying the domineering will of the golden-winged rock clan. He flapped his wings and directly swept towards Lu Kuan's fist. Rumble. The wings suppressed the terrifying fist, and a series of talisman runes shot out, blooming brilliantly, and energy swept across the sky. Lu Kuan's mighty fist was also suppressed by Du Xiaofu's rock descends to the 9th heaven. I'm a human king, and I have the undying martial vein. You can't go against me anymore. Break. Lu Kuan sneered and shouted. The mysterious talisman runes on his fist erupted, and with a loud bang, it directly destroyed Du Xiaofu's rock descends to the 9th heaven wings. It turned into a large number of broken talisman runes that surged in the sky, causing the countless gazes in the square to tremble violently. Chi, the evil fist wrapped in talisman runes, accompanied by the pressure of a human king, rapidly enlarged in Du Xiaofu's eyes. At this moment, Du Xiaofu could no longer dodge. He couldn't even activate his meridian spirit in time, and even if he did, it wouldn't be of any use. The fist was like thunder, and it landed on his chest with a loud bang. Bang! With a low muffled sound, Du Xiaofu's chest was hit by a huge force, and the eviling energy surged into his body. Kid, die. In front of me, you're far from enough. Lu Kuan's sinister face sneered. In an instant, fist after fist landed on Du Xiaofu's chest like a rainstorm. Rumble, fist after fist landed on Du Xiaofu's chest, and waves of terrifying talisman runes sputtered out rings of terrifying energy ripples that spread out in a ring shape. Bang, bang, bang. Over 10 punches landed on Du Xiaofu's chest in a row. This was the most powerful attack. Under everyone's watchful eyes, it wasn't hard to see that Du Xiaofu's chest was beginning to turn into a bloody mess. Blood was dripping, and the white bones were faintly visible. Du Xiaofu's mouth was constantly vomiting blood, and his internal organs were instantly shattered. His consciousness was shaken, and it was as if he was about to lose consciousness. He was becoming more and more powerless to resist. All the defenses on his body had already been shattered, and even his marrow-cleansing body was unable to resist such a huge force. Bang! Lu Kuan's final fist landed, and Du Xiaofu's body fell from the sky, smashing into the ground like a meteor. Rumble! This time, Du Xiaofu smashed into the ground, creating a huge crater around him. Gravel shot out in all directions, and large cracks appeared on the ground, spreading all the way out of the square. Valiant Marquis! Under the bombardment of punches, Du Xiaofu's chest was badly mangled, and it was as if he had bombarded their chests and souls. Among the spectators below the square, there were women with tears in their eyes, and they didn't dare to look directly. Countless hot-blooded men clenched their fists, and their eyes were bloodshot. Their nails dug into their palms, and blood flowed out. Xiaofu. Ouyang Shuang's eyes were wet, and her expression changed. Sister Shuang, don't worry. Brother is fine now. Du Xiaoqing whispered to Ouyang Shuang. From her observation, she knew that her brother's aura hadn't reached the most worrisome stage yet. However, at this moment, her pure and innocent eyes were looking at Lu Kuan in the sky, and a cold ripple appeared in her eyes. He's still lost? He's already very strong. He must hold on. So what if he lost 10 prefectures? The Tianhu Empire has Lu Kuan, and now the Stone Dragon Empire also has Du Xiaofu. In time, the valiant Marquis Du Xiaofu won't be inferior to Lu Kuan. On the city gate tower, many old men looked at the Protector King and the North Vanquishing Prince, as if they wanted them to stop the fight. Old man, what do you think? The Protector King looked at the North Vanquishing Prince, and his eyes flickered with faint lightning. He frowned, as if he wanted to stop the fight. So what if he lost 10 prefectures? Talent is the most important thing. On the North Vanquishing Prince's skinny and wrinkled face, his eyes flickered, and he wanted to stop the fight. He hasn't lost yet. Don't worry, let him handle it himself. Standing on Du Xiaoqing's shoulder, Du Xiaoyao spoke, stopping the North Vanquishing Prince and the Protector King. Du Xiaoyao and Du Xiaofu had a spiritual connection, so she knew that although Du Xiaofu was severely injured, his vitality wasn't in danger. Instead, Du Xiaoyao could feel that the vitality in Du Xiaofu's body was beginning to undergo a strange violent change. Moreover, Du Xiaoyao also knew that Du Xiaofu had a martial vein spiritual mark. If Lu Kuan really wanted to kill Du Xiaofu, it would be difficult for him to do so. Chapter 464. Translator. H2DH2, Mr. All gazes fell on the dusty ground of the plaza. This time, no one would believe that there would be a miracle. Everyone had just seen that Du Xiaofu's chest was dripping with blood and white bones. He was most likely dead. In the sky, Lu Kuan's gaze also landed on the plaza below with a cold smile. On his ferocious face, His eyes were like those of a ferocious beast, causing fear to rise in people's hearts. Suddenly, Lu Kuan seemed to have sensed something. The expression on his ferocious face changed. His gaze abruptly twitched as an evil aura surged. His figure pounced downwards, arriving below in a flash. Whoosh, whoosh, whoosh. At the same time, the sound of wind breaking resounded from the dusty ground below. A total of 18 streaks of light soared into the sky, all of them filled with astonishing energy fluctuations. The 18 streaks of light instantly floated in the air, turning into 18 formation flags. They directly stopped Lu Kuan's figure, causing his expression to change slightly. When the 18 formation flags appeared, they enveloped the space with lightning speed and trajectory. Then, they turned into dazzling rune-light pillars and disappeared. Boom! All of a sudden, the sky trembled violently. Dazzling runes suddenly spread out in the sky, causing the entire space to rumble and tremble. A powerful rune array appeared and enveloped LV Kuan in an instant. Endless energy rune light distorted the space. Finally, the rune array covered the sky and covered the sun. High up in the sky, the clouds surged, causing the world to darken. This is a 5-star mysterious rune array. Could it be that Du Xiaofu is already a 5-star mysterious rune master? This is an illusory array. It is not as sturdy as a defensive rune array or as fierce as an offensive rune array. However, once trapped in the illusory array, it will be difficult to escape. This illusory array is not ordinary. As the rune array was set up, the countless gazes in the plaza were stunned. No one had expected that at the last moment, Du Xiaofu would actually be able to set up such a terrifying rune array. Many nervous gazes on the city gate tower also became excited. That is the sole bewitching formation of the enlightenment realm in the academy. He should have comprehended it during the 5 years he was in the talisman realm in the academy. I didn't expect him to have already reached such a level in the Tao of Talismans. It has already surpassed his cultivation base in martial arts. Light rippled in Gu Xinyan's eyes, but she was still frowning, an arrow at the end of its flight, struggling in the face of death. In the Tianhu Empire's formation, the black-haired Jing Yu sneered. A 5-star mysterious level illusion array wouldn't be able to trap LV Kuan for long. If LV Kuan was at his peak, he would be able to break the array by force. But now, he would only be trapped for a short while. As the illusory array enveloped the square, the gazes of the people in the square changed again. The atmosphere was tense. In the deep pit on the ground, Du Xiaofu clenched his teeth and screamed. His chest was continuously bombarded by LV Kuan's Martial King Realm Human King. With Du Xiaofu's cultivation base in the Pulse Spirit Realm at the Nirvana Realm, even if he had the body of the Golden-Winged Roc, he wouldn't be able to withstand it. Especially under the bombardment of LV Kuan's terrifying immortal martial vein, the power was even more sinister and terrifying. He couldn't withstand it. When he was being bombarded continuously, Du Xiaofu had already started to condense the rune array with all his strength. At this moment, after activating the 5-star mysterious level illusion array with his cultivation base as a 5-star spiritual talisman master in the Enlightenment realm, he really couldn't withstand it anymore. His entire body collapsed, and he was on the verge of death. At this moment, Du Xiaofu felt that a large number of his ribs had already been broken. They were cracked to the point that they were about to shatter into pieces. That kind of intense pain was connected to his heart. His internal organs also began to crack. The pain was heart-wrenching and indescribable. He even felt that death was approaching. At the same time, waves of terrifying sinister energy that surged into his body because of LV Kuan's bombardment directly destroyed all the vitality in his body, causing the blood in Du Xiaofu's body to coagulate. His entire body stiffened, and his soul was also affected. The terrifying sinister energy spread from his chest to his limbs, causing Du Xiaofu to be unable to move in a short period of time. It was as if his body had turned into a zombie. Even his internal organs were affected and stiffened. This time, for some reason, under such a destructive attack, the mysterious martial vein spirit seal on Du Xiaofu's body didn't work anymore. In the end, Du Xiaofu's bloody face also began to become ferocious. It was as if he was exactly the same as LV Kuan, looking demonic and terrifying. The life force in Du Xiaofu's body became weaker and weaker. However, at this moment, only his chest still maintained its vitality. At this moment, Du Xiaofu felt a sudden heat coming from his chest. Among the broken and shattered ribs in his chest, there was a breastbone that couldn't be broken. However, at this moment, it was loosened by the impact of the huge force. It was a broken bone. Du Xiaofu's dazed consciousness remembered that it was a broken bone from the golden-winged rock that he had strangely obtained in the savage beast mountain range. Huff! At this moment, the surging sinister energy corroded and destroyed his entire body, but it was unable to corrode this broken bone. It seemed that because the sinister energy didn't want to corrode and destroy it, the broken bone suddenly fluctuated. Chi! At this moment, the broken bone seemed to have suffered a fierce attack from the sinister energy. It began to emit a dazzling light, like a dazzling ball of light, and began to seep out golden blood. This golden blood directly flowed into Du Xiaofu's heart, blood vessels, meridians, flesh, muscles, and then connected to all the bones in his body. Walala! The golden blood that flowed out was domineering and fierce. It seemed to have been provoked by the sinister energy and exploded. Immediately, the sinister energy that had surged into Du Xiaofu's body from Lu Kuan's bombardment was completely destroyed. This was the aura of an absolute king. It couldn't be provoked, couldn't be corroded, and was filled with absolute arrogance. It destroyed everything that provoked it. Then, this golden blood flowed naturally in Du Xiaofu's extremely weak body, as if it was connected to his blood vessels. The broken bone in Du Xiaofu's chest was clearly not large, but endless golden blood flowed out, covering his bones, muscles, and internal organs. It flowed through his blood vessels and meridians, nourishing his bones. There were also mysterious talisman patterns that flickered and gushed out, like a golden sun. A huge amount of energy also suddenly surged out. Du Xiaofu was extremely familiar with this kind of energy. It was as though the two of them had merged into one. However, the magnitude of this energy caused Du Xiaofu's body to feel as though it was about to explode. This energy was far greater than what he had felt back in the savage beast mountain range. At the same time, the terrifying energy that spread out from the broken bone was far more pure than when he was in the barbaric beast mountain range. It spread out with the purest energy waves, and in a short moment, Du Xiaofu's body was about to explode. This is the purest energy of the golden-winged Great Pong. In his dazed consciousness, Du Xiaofu immediately regained consciousness under this impact. The familiar aura was extremely pure, like a person who lacked oxygen seeing air, or a fish that lacked water returning to the sea. Without even thinking, Du Xiaofu instinctively activated the cultivation method of the golden-winged Great Pong clan. The endless energy that surged out from the broken bone directly became Du Xiaofu's own profound qi. At this moment, this energy was completely equivalent to Du Xiaofu's own energy. He did not even need to refine it himself. It was like the terrifying energy hidden in the depths of Du Xiaofu's body had all returned to his body at this moment. Middle stage of the Meridian Spirit Realm. Late stage. Peak. Middle stage of the Meridian Spirit Realm. Middle stage of the Meridian Spirit Realm. As Du Xiaofu circulated the cultivation method of the golden-winged rock clan, the profound energy in his body and the energy that surged out from the broken bone immediately returned to their positions. They converged into the spirit gate below his abdomen, reincarnated through all the acupoints and meridians in his body, breaking through the invisible barriers on the path of cultivation, causing his cultivation level to soar like a rocket. Within the broken bone in his chest, Du Xiaofu felt that his body was beginning to sublimate under the pure energy and golden blood. This kind of pure golden blood was like the purest blood essence of the golden-winged Great Pong. His internal organs, bones, muscles, and everything else were transforming and strengthening once again. They were all cleansed of the last traces of impurities and were completely approaching the most terrifying and powerful physique of a true golden-winged Great Pong. At this moment, Du Xiaofu's current state was completely different from when he was in the savage beast mountain range. At this moment, Du Xiaofu was immersed in this wonderful state. It was like a baby that had returned to his mother's embrace. It was as if he was a newborn true golden-winged great Pong, constantly absorbing oxygen, searching for everything he needed, obtaining everything that could strengthen himself, making himself stronger. What's going on? What's going on? That seems to be the aura of the divine valor Marquis. At this moment, under the countless gazes of the surroundings, a golden light that resembled the sun erupted from the deep pit where the divine valor Marquis du Xiaofu had fallen. Circles of golden light illuminated the entire plaza, and a tyrannical and ferocious aura spread out. Boom! From within the dazzling golden light, countless talisman runes shuttled out like golden lightning. The tyrannical and terrifying aura was enough to cause all beasts to tremble. It caused the demonic beast-veined souls in the bodies of countless people around the plaza to tremble violently. At this moment, countless gazes were filled with shock. On the city gate tower, many excited people moved closer to the front row of the city gate tower, trembling as they stared at the golden light that resembled the sun. Everyone knew that at this moment, the divine valor Marquis du Xiaofu was undergoing some kind of change. At the very least, this change proved that the divine valor Marquis du Xiaofu had not lost yet.